Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to News Central's continued live coverage of the Edo State Gubernatorial Elections. Now, yesterday, citizens across Edo defied fears and headed to the polls in a highly anticipated election, an election many have said is not just about the governorship candidates themselves, but about the influence of their predecessors, whose legacies seem to loom large over the race. It's a political showdown of sorts that has gripped the state and caught the nation's attention. As we stand here today, less than 24 hours after the votes have been cast, the picture is still developing. Although it's too close to call, one thing is clear: this election has already surprised many. Leading up to yesterday, there were fears of violence, especially given the tense atmosphere that often surrounds contests like this. But to the relief of many, Edo State has seen far fewer incidents of violence than expected. The resilience and maturity of the Edo electorate have been truly impressive, proving once again that the democratic spirit is alive and, well. However, news reaching us has it that while the final collation of results in Edo State governorship election is still being awaited, a mild drama between the incumbent Governor Godwin Obaseki and members of the All Progressive Congress occurred in the early hours of today at the INEC office in Benin City, the state capital. At about a few minutes to 5 this morning, Governor Obaseki visited the state resident electoral commissioner, Anubum Onoha, at his office. Although details of the visits were not made known to journalists, it might not be unconnected with the election held across the 18 local government areas of the state on Saturday, just yesterday. However, members of the APC who seems to be uncomfortable with the governor's visit stormed the INEC office and demanded that Governor Obaseki vacate the office and allow INEC to complete their job. It took the intervention of the Deputy Inspector General, the DIG of Police, to charge of the police contingent to the Edo State governorship election, Frank Mba, and men of Nigerian military to douse the situation after they escorted Governor Obaseki out of the complex to his car at the APC supporters as they were led by Tony Kabaka. They booed him out, by the way, just so you know. Now, we're going to be bringing you details about this, if only you stay with us. And we'll also be bringing you more details on the show, as we have our reporters spread across Edo State to give a situation report as the day progresses. Now, let's welcome you guys and say welcome to day 2 as we continue to cover every single thing with our professional reporters across Edo State and us here live in the studio with guests, observers from Edo State, and also analysts as we bring you all the events and happenings for this day. Let's get started. Welcome.
A very good morning to you and welcome back to News Central's continuing coverage of the Edo State Gubernatorial Elections. It's been an eventful few days with millions of voters making their voices heard in what has been described as one of the most highly contested elections in the state in recent history. Now, the race has been fierce, with a close battle between the major political parties and a strong showing from all candidates involved. And as the results continue, as we wait for the results to come in, it's clear that this election will be remembered for its intensity, the anticipation surrounding the outcome, and the significant role played by the key political parties and the figures behind the scenes. Now, early hours of today, we were informed that the governor of Edo State, and that is Governor Godwin Obaseki, he visited the INEC offices at Edo State there at the early hours of the morning, and he was booed out by supporters of the APC, as well as being escorted there by officials of the Nigerian Police Command.
also, found very untoward was that just, less than an hour of close-up poll in some units, and even when election was still ongoing, one political party that is the party of Mr. Obaseki purportedly brought out result of 2020 election as their own result. That a news media had to come and debunk that rumor. I think that show a propensity to seek to compromise the electoral process. Maybe it is a continuation of that attempt that he has left his dignified office, his very comfortable government house, to come and sit and they seek to harass and intimidate the resident electoral commissioner and other officers of INEC.
Now, to help us break down the latest development and also give us a clearer picture of what exactly happened on ground, we're joined by our brilliant team of reporters. Austin Azu right now is joining us to give us details about what happened earlier this morning. Austin, good morning, and thank you for joining us bright and early. Our first reporter this morning. Austin, please, we heard about what happened in the early hours of this morning with the governor storming the INEC office. Please, can you give us details about that?
Yes, good morning. This morning around 2 a.m. we heard that the governor actually came into the INEC secretariat, and amidst security tight check along the road. So the governor went into a closed-door session with the REC, and the APC got wings of the governor's presence, and they stormed the place. However, they demanded that the governor should vacate the premises to enable INEC to complete their job. However, not only that, we equally saw a large numbers of APC supporters outside the premises. Of course, you know quite well that the security personnel has taken over that premises, so they were just at towards the entrance of the road. So that was where they were when the governor was finally, escorted out of the premises after much pressure on the REC to let the governor out of the premises. So that was actually what transpired this morning. But don't forget to that almost 89% to 90% from the polling units to the ward level result has already been uploaded on the INEC ref. So it means that somehow, somewhere, they have gotten wind of the outcome of the election so far. But the REC has not officially announced the results, and most of the returning officers from the 18 local government areas have started making their ways into the complexes last night to this morning. Hopefully that the collation of the results will begin this morning and forward to the final announcement of the Edo Decide.
Austin, yes, we are following the IREV uploads and all of that. Well, we are very interested in knowing exactly what Obaseki's aim was in visiting the office. What was his intention exactly? Does anybody know?
Well, details of his visit was not made known to journalists, but don't forget to that this is the one after the election. So, and of course, you know quite well that politicians will always take advantage of whatever that is happening within the political space. So that was practically what really happened. And from what we gathered so far, unconfirmed report that the governor's intention is to meet the REC and find a solution or talk about how the election, one way or the other, might favor one political party or the other. That's why the APC kicked against it, and that's why the APC actually wanted the governor out of that place so that it doesn't influence the outcome of the election.
Oh, that's very interesting when you look at different parties, and I mean, of course, the governor is not supposed to be there, and they're supposed to be isolated now to be counting the results. But let me hear from you. Throughout yesterday and now the early hours of today, how has your experience been like just, observing the elections and covering the elections at Edo State?
Yes, since 2 days ago that we came into the States, the atmosphere has quite changed. But today, look, it has relaxed a little, unlike what we'll see in the previous days. Yesterday, precisely during the elections, during the election, we went around a lot of local government area, precisely in Edo Central and Edo South, and we experienced some places a very low turnout of voters, probably because of the heavy downpour early in the morning. And particularly we are at East and Southeast local government area, as at around 9 o'clock in the morning, voting materials have not, been taken away from the local government rack centers. And not only that, it was about 10 to 11 a.m. that voting started in some polling units. So obviously the delay of the voting materials delayed the process at East and Southeast local government area. And that is the local government area that the PDP governorship candidate voted. He voted at about 11:54 a.m. And before that, we saw a large numbers within his own polling unit. He voted at Ward 1, Unit 3 at Ewohimi. We saw a large numbers in that polling unit. We went further to another polling unit. Of course, is within the governorship candidate kindred within those areas. So they all came out and they actually defied the rain for them to exercise their franchise. We went further from there to East and West, and before we finally came to Oredo and to Ego. At Ego, Ward 7, Unit 22, Unit 21, we had a little violence that took place yesterday, where the ballot papers and the ballot box were all, scattered. And obviously, you know what it means before the INEC rules and regulations, that anywhere you record any act of violence, that place will have to score 0. By and large, the election was quite relatively adjudged peaceful across the 18 local government area. But whether it was transparent, whether it was free, whether it was fair, of course, we can't tell that. But we have a pocket of feelers from other parts of the states that we recorded some level of vote buying. And of course, what triggered the violence at Ward Ego, it was actually related to vote buying. And not only that, too, at the same Ward 7 at Unit 7, Unit 10 and 9 thereabout, we only had some skirmishes of violence, which was quickly nabbed by the security agencies on board. And of course, from the cross-section of respondents who spoke to yesterday, they were quite satisfied with the outcome of the election, unlike what they used to record in the past. And we have heavily armed security personnel stationed along the roads, even not too far away from the polling unit. So obviously, the security agencies should have some, commendation for being professional for what they have done yesterday.
Austin, thank you very much. Yesterday, I remember that I was with you when you brought that information about the polling units that was involved with the vote buying. However, you also in the morning told us about the delay that it was experienced in setting out some of the officials, the INEC officials, to the riverine areas. We're very concerned about that. When did voting start at these riverine areas? When did it end? And what was it like at these locations?
Yes, most of those at the riverine area yesterday, they expressed deep concerns about their terrain. Of course, you know quite well that the riverine area, their terrain are quite very unfavorable. So what they did was to ensure that they move on time. But very unfortunate at East and Southeast local government area, those at the riverine area, particularly it was Ward 10. They lamented about the issue of the life jacket. It was not earlier provided, but they later got it, and before they went to that ward. Of course, we got to see most of them from the riverine area early this morning, coming out to INEC office. So it means that the voting ended very late. And of course, the REC yesterday equally told journalists that areas that couldn't get voting materials on time, the voting time was extended for them to complete the exercise. So of course, they arrived very late, and their results back to the INEC State Secretariat, of course, definitely it might surely come late.
All right. Well, also, I want to say thank you so much. We wait to see when all of the polling units officers, they present their results and they present their balance, or rather the result sheets to the REC. We'll see what wards and polling units were able to vote and those who, and how the turnout eventually looked like for the state. But once again, we appreciate you for doing this with us. Thank you so much. Also, Naduzu there is our correspondent for News Central TV, who is live at Edo State. We switch gears now to discuss, continue with our conversation this morning. And this time we're speaking to Comrade Orobosa Omojo. He is the Director of Publicity, Edo APC Campaign Organization, and he joins us now virtually. Well, a very good morning to you, sir, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Africa.
Good morning. Well, yesterday seemed to have been a success, but I would like to ask you, how would you assess the performance of INEC during the elections yesterday?
Oh, great. Let me first and foremost apologize of my inability to join you yesterday and give you a live report. The rains had its role to play, so I'm sorry about that. But moving ahead, I think INEC improved tremendously. The distribution of material started in earnest on the rat center that several party agents were taking on our well. By 7:30, the materials had left some of the wards that I monitored until eventually I got to my ward. Ward 3, via Northeast local government, we had to be precise. We have about 22 units there, and I monitor quite a lot. The Beaver's machine was like walking at jet speed. I have seen Beaver machine used in some elections now, and I would say that so far, in all the elections, this is the first time that the Beaver, really work fine. Generally, the ad hoc staff, the SPO, the EOs, I feel they did quite well. At the Collation Center last night that I left this morning, you can figure from my voice that I'm still like I've not recovered. My voice has not recovered. It was very orderly, and parties, in a way, acted in a manner that made the INEC work to be effective and efficient. But, however, the party will still have to do a lot of sensitization, especially among the political class, especially among their agents, among their party leaders, and all that, because there was still attempt for some groups to come in to violently snatch ballot boxes, but they were resisted.
Right. Now,
are you there, please?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Are you there?
Comrade Omojo, we need you to sit back a bit because we lost your face there. If you can help us sit back. But whilst you're doing that, I'd like to ask you about the events of this morning. We saw Governor Obaseki, that's the governor of Edo State, who was at the INEC office the early hours of this morning, and then he was escorted out by the security operatives there. Plus, he was booed by supporters of the APC. What is your reaction to that, the events of this morning?
Quite disheartening that my friend, the governor, will have to descend as low as that. I mean, we passed through this before. In 2007, I was a spokesperson to Comrade Adams and Leo Shomole when we came in again to sack the PDP from the state. And he watched us from the sideline, and he saw how strong Edo people can be when they are resolved to sack a government that has become irresponsible, just as his became irresponsible some few months ago. And it's disheartening, and I don't think he has learned anything from what has happened. You don't try to intervene in an electoral body's process. You don't do it.
Now,
it happened before. And I think his action needs to be condemned by the media, especially. And because every stakeholder in this process must speak out, so such that the battle does not become the man with the deepest pocket or the man that has the element of violence, the most element of violence. That's what happened. He just went there to go and stir violence, but thank God he ended peacefully. Report says that he crept into the office last time. We have pictures, everything, that he found that he forced his way up. There were even allegations that he went there to try and compromise some of the INEC staff. For crying out loud, why will a state executive tell, a man that occupies such executive position go ahead and stir violence? Something may have happened or could have happened. And this goes a long way that he was trying to foment trouble and keep to his promise that the election would be a do and die process. But thank God he ended very well. And I salute the security and I salute the APC youth for conducting themselves in a very, very responsible and peaceful manner.
Well, I must state here that we do not know the details of his visit to the INEC office. We do not know what the conversations that was had, and they were all allegations.
Yeah.
So yes, I just wanted to state that for our viewers. But I mean, Comrade Mojo, so far so good. Oh, you said you do have the details. I didn't hear that. Please go ahead.
I have the detail. Once he left the government house, I have my correspondent embedded in their team. We were accredited by INEC to cover the election, and so we virtually were everywhere. We had our reporters at the Collation Center, at the INEC headquarters, and I knew that. Let me be personal about this. I knew, and I have photographs of when he came. If you want me to share them with you, I'll share them with you. Once I'm off this program, so that you can use it to formulate your program, your features, moving ahead of this, so that you can be able to look at the genesis of where it happened. You have pictures of where he was forcing his way upstairs. They allowed him, and once he climbed upstairs, he was looking far, like a lost man, looking straight at the passage, and people staring at him. At another time, they gave him a plastic chair to sit. What was he looking for? Who was he looking for? And that is exactly what I'm seeing now on your screen. You don't do, who does this, please? Who does this? This is a democracy that is prejudice. This is a democracy that we all need to protect. And I don't think it's responsible of a man that ought to be the chief security officer of a state to leave the government house and attempt to invade INEC office.
Now, Comrade Mojo, we would like to actually get the pieces of detail that you have regarding the instance. So please do share with our producer.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Now, right now, I'll do it. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, let's talk about the security implication here. I mean, if the current governor could simply walk into the INEC office and we have 35,000 deployed security agents in Edo State, what does that say for the security? We have praised the security until now. We have recorded very little violence from the election since yesterday, and we've praised their efforts. However, is it that the governor is above the law and can simply just waltz into the INEC office? What does that say for the security agents that have been deployed to Edo State?
The governors are not above the law, but what happened last night and early this morning, amplifies what we'll be saying about the harassment that we have put, that the governor has subjected us to in the past 4 years. This is just typical. This is just a piece of the iceberg of what, the Godwin got to a point that he just believed that as a governor, he can wake up and remove the roof from your home without challenge. And because his media team, somehow we are in sync with us, the media. Most of these complaints were drummed down by our colleagues in the media.
Comrade Mojo, he was there. Let's note that he was there, but there were also APC supporters at the INEC office, and from the videos that we saw, there was a lot of them. So what were they doing there? What's wrong for him to actually be there?
Let me paint the scenario the way a collation center works. Actually very close to where a collation took place last night. Once you are collating, the environment is like a marketplace because everybody is struggling to protect their votes. But what the law says that the perimeter of the area must be according to the radius that the law enforcement officers there will have to ensure. So the fact that the APC youth were outside, they were outside. They were not within the presence of the collation center. They were outside the gate. They were not within the building. So what happened was that the governor came in because he came with hood of security. You can see you can see the number of policemen following him as if he's going to war. And where is the one that was crying before now, telling the Nigerians that his policemen, his security, personnel have been withdrawn from him. From the video you are showing, does this show a man that does not have 1 or 2 or 3 policemen? So what happened is he just shared power show. So I don't want to indict the police to say they didn't do their work well, but there's a segment, there's a section of the law enforcement agency that refused to take instruction from the IG that there should be no executive excursion during this election. And some of them abandoned their duty. Let me just give this instance. In my ward yesterday, there was a particular boy who works at the council as the secretary that started his madness as early as 9 o'clock in the morning. And I constantly put a call across those that were detailed to be called upon, the numbers that were given to come for a cover-up so that they can flush out this person. Until the vote ended, we never saw one of them. We have to now insist and adapt the use of local self-help. And that was what prevented a young man from not coming to invade first the polling unit and not coming to invade the collation center. In fact, we have to hurriedly try and collate before dark because the young man persistently was coming, and he has done it before the last presidential election. He made sure that 2 units with very high votes were cancelled in the community. So I feel the session of the security slept off, or for want of reason right now, they decided to just sit down and look. So I'm sure that also happened at the INEC office in Benin, that they compromised, and because they ought to have stopped Mr. Godwin Obaseki at the gate of INEC and not to allow him to have access. The pictures I will send to you, he found his way upstairs. They gave him chair to sit down. Waiting for who? As if it was a banking hall, waiting to be attended to. Or was he at a clinic, waiting to be sitiated because he was tired or what? I really don't understand how the governor found his way upstairs, and I don't know who he was waiting for. I think we have to look inward and find out how did Mr. Governor Obaseki enter his premises, found his way upstairs, and he was given a chair with the security, with 2 policemen by his side, waiting to say who.
Comrade, I'd like for you to walk me through the process of I understand that you voted and was at your own polling unit yesterday. Just help me answer a couple of questions. Were you identified during the verification process? Did they use the beavers on you? Yes or no?
Perfect. My INEC card is what I've always been using, and I didn't have problem with it.
So you were verified with the beavers? Did it work?
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. It worked perfectly.
Okay.
In my unit, in the 5 units in my community, we don't allow INEC officials to come and help. We don't seek for self-help. You must work according to the rules, even if it's 2 votes. Count it for us.
Okay.
So I have to exclaim to say this beaver machine is working very well. It's the first time I've seen a beaver work.
Comrade, I'm getting somewhere, please. Comrade, I'm getting somewhere, please. When they collated the results at the end, was it uploaded on the IREV, yes or no?
I insisted it must be uploaded.
And was it?
And I insisted, yes. Go ahead.
And lastly, my final question for you before we let you go, because I understand we're out of time. With the visit of the governor to the INEC office and the minister of the FCT statements about the wreck of INEC for Edo State, which is more egregious to APC? The statements
if you can remind me,
the statements that
the FCC minister have made several statements about the REC. Which of the statements in particular are you referring to now?
So I was getting to that. So the first statement that nobody would have, that the PDP doesn't stand a chance, or Governor Obaseki does not stand a chance, and that the REC is his cousin.
Okay, let me pay this one. The last election, presidential election, I led the protest to INEC in Benin to say that REC has to be removed. Why? Because we saw him in a PDP program, actually wearing a PDP attire. I led the protest. I'm a civil rights activist, that he has to be removed. And PDP fought us that the man must stay. The question is that what has changed? He's still a PDP member, assuming. The question I'm now asking, why will PDP not want the PDP REC to remain when they insisted just about a year ago that it must to remain? That is on that. Then two, if Wike has said Obaseki does not stand a chance, Wike was just trying to say the obvious. The battle that Godwin faced is a cumulative effort of everyone. First, his friends that were disenfranchised from his one-man show. Two, were the people that believe in our cultural identity, that felt, hey, this guy has come to try and utter what we believe. Some of us believe in African tradition, and if you attempt to take whatever we believe in, what our faith relies on, you want to utter it, we will fight you back. Then there were those that believe that they've lost so much to infamy. There was such that believe that the hunger in Edo State was brought by his wrong Greek agricultural program and their money that was stuck away in one of the commercial banks that the APC, that the PDP candidate is linked to. They were waiting. I am a rural voter. I voted in the rural area. What most people that voted against the PDP said is that they don't have land to farm again. So the farm has been given to the white
comrade, what you're saying is that him stating the obvious was that the grievances of the people are different, and that Obaseki doesn't stand a chance because of the grievances, and not that Wike has continually showed support to the APC structure, even though he's not a member of that party. Is that what you're saying?
I want to tell you, madam, I have not
I'm Judith. I'm Judith. My name is Judith.
Okay, Judith. No, I always respect lady. I respect my daughter too, who will be joining you soon. But let me just say this one: I have not met the honorable minister, not once, not twice. He has not told me to vote for anybody. I have consistently supported Mr. Godwin Obaseki. In 2020, when he was disenfranchised by the APC for reasons I now believe was right, I fought along the line with Godwin Obaseki. I did not meet Wike. Wike supported him then or whatever. I'm just saying that Wike said the obvious. Even without Wike's statement, which I think was an overkill, Mr. Godwin's candidate, sadly, Aswa Iwudaro would have still been beaten as he has been beaten now, because he doesn't stand a chance. He just came from nowhere. There's something that happens. Edo politics is unique. We decide who will rule us. You can't decide for us from outside the state who will rule us. And when you come in to want to rule and you don't want to be a rascal, then we actually wait for 4 years to deal with you according to the way we feel. We don't allow our leader, our governor, to become, godfathers. And for Mr. Godwin attempting to become a godfather, that was the first signal that he was going to fail. I told Aswa Iwudaro when he was looking for my support, if he's watching, he knows what I told him. We were stepping down from one of the early mornings, 7 o'clock flight from Lagos, and we just moved to the tail of the aircraft. And we discussed, we actually sat together all through Incident 1. We discussed the whole thing. And I told him he doesn't stand a chance against even any person that is brought against him, because the anger against the governor was enormous. The bitterness was so. I told him I was bitter with the governor because I supported him, believing he meant well for the people. That this time around, I want to extricate myself from whatever problem that will follow his exit, so that I'm not counted amongst those ones that misled Edo people. So it's not about weakness, it's just about pent up anger against the misrule of Governor Obaseki.
Comrade, you said that Edo State doesn't have a place, so do not frown against Godfatherism. But isn't Adams Oshomole, the former governor of APC, who is also a member of a former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, a godfather as well, or seemed to be a godfather in the state?
Okay, I like that word. Seen by onlookers. That is
But he's
godfather.
not. So you're saying he's not. Because we're out of time. He's not, right? Yes or no?
Comrade Oshomole, my former boss, I've had my differences with him in the past. I will tell you, he doesn't show when you move close to him. He's the best Democrats I've seen. I have contested twice for House of Rep that he asked me to contest, and he didn't come to the field to help me or to supplant me on my co-contestants under the APC. He is a Democrat, but people see him because he's forceful, because he has a self-belief. They just feel that he's a dictator. Just the way I am. People, when you believe in your ideology, by your political ideology, there's always a temptation for people to brand you. That's the way they brand him. He's one of the best Democrats I've seen.
All right. Well, Comrade Robosa,
support a weakness against any best person. He doesn't do it.
We have to. Well, we've run out of time. We've run out of time, unfortunately. We're waiting for the pictures and the videos that you promised us. But many thanks, Comrade Robosa Omojo. He's the director of publicity, Edo APC campaign organization. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Judith, and my gentleman up there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining. Now, joining us is our reporter at Edo State, and that's Bettina Nweli. Bettina, good morning. Thank you very much for bringing us all the latest from yesterday, and even this morning. We could see how your efforts actually helped us through the show and how tired you were at the end of the day. Hopefully, you've had some rest. But please, do tell us what the situation is right now, this morning in Edo State, after the votings from yesterday and as the numbers are beginning to come in.
It's business as usual. Everyone is back to their individual responsibilities. We are around Stadium Road right now, and you can see a couple of people making their way to church. So all that is happening is that the people are waiting for when the results will be announced to know who the next governor of Edo State will be.
Now, Bettina, before the elections, 71% of people that were surveyed actually told that they were expecting plenty of violence, and we saw that there was very minimal from yesterday. With the voters that you spoke to yesterday, what were their assessment of the security situation across Edo State?
I would say a lot of voters were quite pleased with the security presence because security has been an issue in Edo State. It's something that a lot of people were also worried about regarding these elections, especially seeing what happened during the primaries. But we are glad that when it comes to casualties or any insecurity, it was to the barest minimal. Instead, what we had were cases of alleged vote buying in some parts of the state. But other than that, I would say that everything regarding the election went very peacefully in Benin, in Edo State.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to ask about the delays as well with INEC and the arrival of material. That's voting materials as well as the POs as well. With the turnout that you saw at those polling units, do you think that it had any, besides the rain, do you think it also had any effect when it comes to the turnout of voters, especially in the units that you covered and observed?
In some places, amongst the units that I covered, there were some cases of voters' enthusiasm. In other places, we experienced some voter apathy, where people will tell you that, I've voted all these years, and at the end of the day, my vote never counts. So I'm not bothered about participating in this election this time around. While others are like, we would keep trying. We're not pleased with the government that we have, so we would keep trying, we'll keep pushing because we want a better Edo State and we want a better Nigeria. So it was a bit of mixed feelings amongst the voters. Regarding the delay, in some polling units, INEC did come late, say 30-40 minutes late. In most parts of polling units in Benin City, at about 8:30, voting had already commenced, and at about 2 p.m., 3 p.m., counting had already commenced, with voting being over. So I would say that in Benin, it was pretty okay.
Okay. I have one very interesting question here. From before the elections, it was noted that 980,000 youths had collected or registered for the elections, and middle-aged people were somewhere around 910,000. That's out of the 2.5 million registered voters. But in your experience, what's the proportion of youth versus middle-aged or older people that actually came out to vote yesterday?
I would say that it was a bit of mixed crowd. Yes, there were some polling units where you see very elderly people, gathered in that area. And then the larger polling units that had 4 to 5 units in a particular ward had, quite a number of youths, quite a number of young people who were there. They stayed there, they cast their votes, they waited for the counting to make sure that there were no hanky-panky in the counting. So, yes, there were a lot of youths. There were also elderly people who are also tired of the situation of the state and the country in general, and also want a change. So they did come out en masse to make sure that, they do their civic responsibility and cast their votes.
Speaking of civic responsibilities and casting votes, I need to ask you about, the turnout for women as well, because I feel like women and PWDs are very, very important, especially the PWDs, where they're able to carry out their civic responsibility in a manner that is, convenient and conducive to them, in terms of accessibility.
Oh, absolutely. We had quite a number of people living with disability who came to the polling units to also do their civic responsibility. I spoke to quite a number and asking them why they felt the need, to come out of their homes, because one would reason that because they are people with disabilities, they would probably not pay attention to these kind of things. But some of them made me understand that they are also Nigerians. They are also feeling the brunt of what is going on in the country, and they live in Edo State. Some are indigents of Edo State, and they want a better Edo State. So, of course, they came out. Even the rains could not hold them. I saw some people on wheelchairs under the rain trying to cast their votes. But coming into the polling units, what I do respect Nigerians for is the fact that for every elderly person or any person living with disability, they did allow them make it to the front to cast their votes and, go home on time so they could take better care of themselves.
And just to wrap up our line of questioning, for the IREV, we know, which is the INEC results viewing portal, towards the end of the voting exercise yesterday, with the polling units that you observed, did they upload the results onto the IREV? Because I know during the last election cycle from last year, which was the 2023, we saw the results not being posted up and people were going onto the portal, not seeing their results. Was it the same with the polling units? Were they having difficulties with the internet? Because I know the REC made a statement saying that if the IREV doesn't work, if they have internet issues, they will not upload on the IREV.
That I monitored, they didn't have any issues with IREV. What is, however, funny to me is the fact that last night, if I'm not mistaken, IREV was recording about 90-something% of the votes being uploaded, but somewhere around 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning, the numbers dropped to like 80%. So it's a bit confusing monitoring IREV to know what the accuracy of what happened to that 10%, over the night. But we continue to watch as things unfold to find out what exactly the situation is with the results of the Edo State election.
Well, Bettina, you've been sublime. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for taking out the time this morning. Do you have any information on when the Collation Center will be open for Edo State and, the result calling would start?
Well, allegedly, from the feelers that we are getting, sometime between 11 and 12, hopefully, we should start collation. And hopefully, maybe the results will be announced before the end of today, if not tomorrow. But we are on it, and we'll keep watching.
All right, well, thank you very much then, Bettina. First off, before you go, I'd like you to tell us if there has been any reaction from people regarding the incidents that happened this morning involving the Governor Obaseki.
Oh, yeah.
No reactions yet. I don't think the people of Edo State want to really get into that. Now, what we saw at the INEC office, the reactions there, I don't want to call people names, but you know, there are people of a different class, Nigerians of a different class, who went there with an agenda. But if you are talking about the indigents of Edo State, they're still going about their daily activities. Nobody really wants to get involved, you know, with any issues regarding the government. So everybody is going about their daily responsibilities. The people who went to the INEC office, you know, to cause that chaos, they know themselves. They know the reason why they went there. I cannot say more than that.
Well, you've said plenty enough. Thank you very much, Bettina. Yeah, thank you. So we'll be expecting more from you as the show progresses. Thank you. Well, Judith, I must say that I am impressed. I will tell you that, because if it was other instances, you would actually see people already flocking to certain destinations to go and cause wahala. Now, we do have the images that the comrade promised us from before.
Excited for this one.
And it's very interesting, these images. He was quite accurate in his description of the instance, with the governor actually provided with a sitting area. And it would seem that he had well, he was guided. Let's put it that way. And while he waited there, I'm going through the pictures. You've seen them yourselves now.
Yes, I have. I'm trying to pull them off.
I'm sure we're going to show that.
We're going to try to pull that up and show it to you on the screen. But again, he was correct that he was sitting at the hallway. There were also other people seated there, and he was just there sitting, waiting at the corridor, just the hallway. There you can see him on his mobile phone. There were two security agencies, policemen by his side, another photograph of him sitting and looking at his phone. And what's interesting is how close these pictures are. Whoever took this photograph is somebody who's clearly in his team.
He was very comfortable with the person.
Because yes, very comfortable with the person, because this is not a photograph that you take. It is so close shot. The pictures are very close.
We'll
I don't know if there's anybody who can let you see this one, but he's
the instance is a very interesting one here, because I'm still wondering exactly what his intention was at the office. Was he waiting to see or get first-hand information about the numbers that are coming in? There was also something that the comrade told us about, the fact that, we heard that from earlier about some papers from the previous year being foisted in as the results that perhaps was coming in from the different places of the state, which obviously seems to be untrue. But it's very interesting that he was given access to the vicinity. Well, there were other people there, and I tried to balance this out. I said, okay, if the PDP governor was there, there were also APC supporters who sent him out. Now, that's the picture there. You can see how comfortable he was.
Very comfortable.
We don't know if these were the policemen that came with him, as we were told by the comrade, but you can see that he was just, he was given access, is the point, into the office. And I'm not sure that this is lawful, that you're supposed to be inside of that vicinity. First off, the kind of reaction that this would create, even just hearing about it, but to have pictures now as evidence is very interesting.
And also very damning as well, because it begs to ask the question about what he was doing there, why he was there, and what was his was he granted, was it very, because was he granted an interview? Was he waiting to speak to the rec? Was he there to accost the rep? The rec, why was he seated there on his mobile phone, just waiting for somebody, waiting for something? We don't know what that thing is. This is very damning and not expected from the exiting chief executive officer of a state, especially on the night or the aftermath of a general or a gubernatorial elections, and you know that all stakes are high indeed. This is just not.
He did implicate the performance of the rec, actually. And this is what we know. However, what other reasons we are unaware of, whether he wanted to actively do something himself, we are not sure.
Whatever it is he wanted to do, why can't you just do it? Okay, I shouldn't say this, because then what I was going to say, no, but honestly what I was going to say, whatever it is that he wanted to do, it could have been done by a mobile phone. You could give him a phone, or maybe he wasn't taking the phone. Maybe he wasn't picking up his telephone
it's
call.
the granting of the access.
It could be exactly.
It's just all sorts of wrong. Somebody has to also be questioned about Why did he let him in? And with 35,000 police officers and
yeah, but Mazino, they're not
security
there
agents,
now.
I'm thinking that this is your job.
Mazino, as a police officer, just imagine you donning the outfit and just you one person in your mind is like, an executive should not be here, and he's walking. You're going to stop him.
I will stop him and lose my job the next day. Yes, lose my job and perhaps maybe go on social media and
then rant, and then you'll be crowdfunded and they will give you money, right?
Perhaps, I don't know. But we'll continue to bring you details about the instance and also details about everything happening inside of Edo State as we're waiting for the centers to open and collation numbers to come in. If you stay here with us, we'll be bringing you all of that, along with all the information that might be happening in the ancillary situations around the elections. So do stay tuned. We've got our reporters all around Edo State and our analysts who will be telling us, and also observers as well. We'll be speaking to a few of them in the next few hours. Stay tuned. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back here to continue with the coverage of the Edo gubernatorial elections as the numbers are coming in.
And you're welcome back to our live coverage, the continuing live coverage of the Edo gubernatorial elections. A day after the elections, we wait for the collation center to open as results will start to be collated within the hour 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. today. We've been discussing to analysts as well as stakeholders, plus our correspondents who have been at Edo State since Thursday, just giving us all the blow-to-blow and all the bits and all the unfolding events from yesterday. But continuing with our discussion, today we're going to be joined by our chief of the Abuja Bureau, who is live at Edo State there, and that is Amadi Uyi. Amadi, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning, and well done for all the hard work from yesterday. But first, I have to start by asking you about vote buying. It was a topic of discussion in this election, and we saw some cases which unfolded. Austin told us about this in particular units as well. I think it was also reported yesterday. But have you come across any instances of this, and what are the reactions of the voters to these cases that we've seen?
Yesterday, we on the field try to look out for cases of vote buying. But you know that as the nation progresses, its electoral process develops, metamorphoses, these incidents will also try to change. We did not see anything on ground, but notably at Uromi in Esan yesterday, the Esan, I think northwest or so, Uromi community, I think is the second largest community after Benin, the capital. We met a voter who told us clearly that there was covert vote trading, vote selling, and vote buying. And we tried to ask if he had any evidence. He said he was telling us it's covert, means that you as a journalist will not see it, but the locals around know what is happening. We also tried to ask if enough had been done by security operatives to stop it. And he clearly told us that security operatives did not even know it was ongoing. But he wanted to tell us that he had been approached by people. He was being offered money that he could not resist, and that was the situation ongoing. And so he wanted to make it clear that vote trading was ongoing during the polls. But getting any evidence, we could not get any.
And I mean, when we look at all of our general elections as well, there's always situations like this where it happens under the radar. When you try to go in to pretty much understand what it is, it's either you're met with a stone wall or it's something else completely. So, but I mean, from your answer, it's very clear that it did indeed happen, although we don't know the details or how it did, but somehow there must have been instances of vote buying across the state. But other than vote buying, I also want to talk about the riverine areas as well. In the arrival of materials to them, the officials to them, and them starting till the end. Were you able to speak to any of the voters there, and what was their experience like?
No, for Edo State, the riverine areas are mostly around the Edo South. When you talk about the Ovia South West area, you talk about the Ologbo area and others. I did not cover the Ovia Southwest. I covered mainly Edo Central and Edo North.
Ahmadin, regarding the situation that you just told us about, where there might have been some serious vote buying, and this individual actually said that he partook, meaning that he actually took this amount or whatever was offered to him. Now, the security agents that were deployed to these areas, I'm wondering whether there was any collaboration between them and local authorities, or whether there was any form of perhaps maybe a secret intel that they could have gathered. The apparatus that was put in place throughout the election, especially where you covered, do you think that it was consistent? Was it okay? Because if these instances happened, then it doesn't seem like it was 100% good.
Okay, let me clarify. The young man I spoke to, if you watch the story I sent, he said he was approached, but he did not accept whatever was given to him. And he made this complaint because he said that he saw other people who had left their homes to come and vote for a particular candidate, but because of the inducement given to him, they were swayed. Now, when you talk about vote buying, I think we should place it in clear perspective. Before you can tackle vote buying and vote selling, there has to be a certain level of intelligence. And that is saddled with the responsibility of security agencies, either the police or the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, who came out to say they were deploying personnel to stop it. So if it went on unhindered, that means that agency responsible for stopping it did not do its job. It did not do its due diligence. Because you need to be embedded in the community to be able to understand how they relate among each other, and to be able to get active intelligence on efforts and everything that has to do with vote buying and selling. Now, if the security agencies did not do that, that means definitely they did not live up to their responsibilities and fell short within the mandate given to them. Unlike when we covered Ekiti and Osun elections, when we talked about vote buying, it was very easy to see the process, see people involved in it. But I can tell you that for Edo election, it was different. If that young individual and certain others had not raised the issue, then most probably you will not have believed it was ongoing. And I want to be very clear. The information we have is that the two frontline parties, the APC and the PDP, were both involved. It was not just one political party that was involved. Everybody within their area of dominance tried to also sway voters with financial inducement. So INEC does not have the capacity to stop it. Security agencies should step up and assist INEC to ensure that this is brought to an end once and for all.
Okay, so that's a big implication on the side of the security agents. What about the voter compliance, however, when it came to security? And then the INEC officials' compliance, was it adequate in the elections from yesterday?
I'm talking about security because on the polling units, we saw enough personnel. In fact, what we noticed on ground at the different polling units was that you had a minimum of 3 policemen polling units. So sometimes in a ward where you have, or a polling area where you have about 3 polling units, you see you have about 3 different polling units. You will see 3 policemen attached to 1 polling unit. And this is not even talking about the number of policemen you see at the entrance when entering there. So all in all, in areas you will see more than, or rather you see between 10 to 15 policemen deployed. So the security presence was very heavy. Then because I had to transit from the Edo Central to the Edo North, I had to transit different polling units and the rest. At the major highways, they were barricaded by policemen and also by military personnel. Between Edo Central, we know the road is bad. We saw a terrible road there, which kept us, the journey was not meant to take less than 30 minutes to 45 minutes, but we spent well over 2 hours because security operatives had barricaded the road at major check junctions and checkpoints to ensure that there was no movement. So in terms of security, there was a very, very heavy deployment. That was why you did not hear of thugs moving from one polling unit to another with arms or trying to snatch ballot boxes. It was not so commonly witnessed during these elections.
And Martin, might I ask, I'm going to see to the same line or the same theme of compliance and ask about the mechanics and the processes of the election, specifically with the beavers and the IREV. And the units that you observed and you covered, were the beavers used to identify the voters? Were the voters present with their voter's card? And also at the end of the elections, which each exercise, were the results uploaded on IREV? I think it's very important that we start to ask these questions because the collation is fast approaching and we need to be certain that these were uploaded on the portals.
Okay, like I said, because I always want to put in the emphasis where I covered, which was the Edo Central and Edo North. For the areas I covered, definitely I wouldn't have been able to cover all the polling units. But the polling units I visited, the beavers was used. And the beavers was used for the accreditation and others. It was used before the election and others. And all the units I visited, I did not witness one problem with the beavers machines. In fact, whenever I go to a polling unit, I would try to speak to the agents of the different political parties because the agents were there to represent their parties, and they were those most likely to give a situation report of what was on ground. The voters could only give a situation report of the process, their accreditation, their voting, and the rest. But the agents were put there to defend the interests of their party, and parties rather. And most of the time, all the times I spoke to agents, they were all satisfied with the process. Now, even after the election, most of them never complained about not uploading the results to the IREV. It was expected because Edo election is an off-cycle election and it's just one state, and you will not have the pressure that the general elections had in 2023. But so far so good, not much people have complained, and we are just waiting to see that INEC will verify the results with what has already been uploaded to the portal.
Martin, many thanks. I appreciate you for doing this with us. Martin, so far, but let me ask you though, in covering, were there things that you observed and noticed during your polling units, going to those polling units that you were there that didn't make it into your reportage yesterday? It just caught your eye or you noticed?
Okay, I just mentioned one yesterday, but which was a problem, underage voters. Underage voters were seen voting freely. The security operatives did not stop them. INEC officials did not stop them. They would come to the line and, okay, first of all, when you see them on the line, sometimes it's unfair to just assume that they came there to vote, because like what I witnessed sometime in the north around 2015 was that a lot of the voters I saw on the line, the ones I saw, I'm not saying it happened in all polling units, they were actually staying there for their aged parents. So you will see them on the line, and when it was time to vote, you witness a swap. Maybe a very elderly person will come and take their place. But for yesterday, in fact, at the Esan area, Edo Central area, I observed that a lot of polling units, there were two lines. One line for the elderly and one line for normal voters. So the underage children were not there for the elderly, and we observed, we can confirm authoritatively that we saw them do their accreditation and we saw them cast their votes. That has not really been played up in this election process, but it's a worrisome development that something needs to be done. I think the Electoral Act stipulates that the minimum age for voting should be 18 years. So when you see a child of about 14 or 15 years on the line and then eventually voting, it should be a cause for concern.
I mean, that's very worrying. But in line with that, I'd like to ask, what was the greater demography of people that actually came out to vote? Was it more youth or more older people this time?
Now, it's very difficult to say so because, you know, Nigeria has a high youth population bulge. So when you see youth voting, it's difficult to assume that they came out more than the elderly, but we saw a different mix. In fact, we saw very elderly people come out to vote. Like, remember I told you, I said I observed two lines. At a point in time, what the polling unit officials began to do was that they started creating two lines. One line for very elderly people and persons living with disability, which was a wonderful innovation, and it was a wonderful effort, because you saw very elderly people who had to be supported, some of them with walking sticks. They still came out to cast their vote. But the larger chunk of people, most probably because Nigeria has a very high youth bulge, the larger chunk of people were youths who had come out to cast their vote, but it was a different mix.
All right. Amadi, I want to say a very big thank you to you. I'm hoping that we're going to have an INEC official join us later on during the conversation on even those who observe the election as well, observers as well from different CSOs and NGOs to talk about especially underage voting, because we saw this as well during the last general elections, and this is something of great concern. But once again, Amadi, many thanks. Amadi Uye there is the chief of the Abuja Bureau for News Central TV. We're going to a short break. When we come back, we bring you the dailies, and that is the front pages of Sunday's dailies. Stay with us.
Now, while we're still bringing you coverage of the Edo elections, we're also going to bring you the dailies, and of course, the news never stops. So today for the dailies, we have an array of papers that we're going to be bringing your way. And let's start with the very first one for this morning. And of course, I'm sure you're going to be expecting plenty from the Edo situation. Oh, but I must tell that we do have a guest here with us. Judith, please, if you would do us the honors of introducing our guest. For the first time on our dailies.
You must have seen him yesterday as well. He was here with us yesterday, and it was a very insightful debate, a very informative debate and entertaining as well. studio with himself and Dr. Omojo. We're being joined by Barrister Albumere, and he joins us live here in the studio. Barrister, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for doing us.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Now, let's go to the papers, and the very first one this morning is going to be, well, let's first of all make sure, I'll take a guess. The Sunday Times for this morning has this very big and interesting headline. Oh no, Sunday Independent. Almost got it there. Edo 2024, PDP APC in tight race for government house as LP drops off. CSOs bemoan vote buying with bread, 5,000 naira. I'm not satisfied with the process, says Igodalo. Barrister, I'm going to come to you for this one because yesterday we had plenty to talk about the Edo situation. Now, especially regarding the cases of vote buying that we've been hearing. Here we're hearing about bread and 5,000 naira. I don't know how long that's going to take the average person. Yes. But my concern here is for the average Edo man, the average Edo citizen, and I mean very average. What is their perception of the current state of Edo and the governance that would actually make them say, okay, maybe I might accept 5,000 naira for my vote?
It's a pity when the news started filtering in, although we had suspected that it may happen. And I think the government, INEC, and the political parties, through voter education, tried to sensitize the people against succumbing to various tactics and incidents of vote buying. But we were surprised that it read its ugly head yesterday. You talk about 5,000 naira. The story out there on the street is that one of the parties, was giving out between 10 to 20,000 naira. I remember late yesterday evening, I got a call from home, nearby Opoji, that towards the end of the voting exercise, that one of the parties had upped the ante to about 30,000 naira. It's a pity, and I think it reflects the level of deprivation and poverty. Not only in terms of poverty of morality, poverty in terms of finance, and poverty in terms of what the people actually want for themselves.
Remember I asked you yesterday,
yes.
I said, are the candidates aware of what the people want? The average man, like you noted from before, might not be as educated as to perhaps maybe noting all the different indices that comes together to make governance. So the average person, what are they expecting from the government that they're not getting?
But I think from drawing not only from what we are seeing coming out of the Edo election, but on a nationwide basis, starting from 1999, it's like maybe the people think in terms of only immediate satisfaction. Perhaps, maybe this is born out of the fact of disappointment that they've had with a series of governments in terms of unfulfilled promises, and they say to themselves, oh, perhaps, look, if I don't take this now, maybe this is the only thing I'm going to get from the government. Oh, and some people have this belief that vote doesn't count in Nigeria. That even if you come out and you exercise your franchise, that ultimately it will not count. People are suspicious of the role of government, federal might. Remember when PDP was in power? That was when the phrase first came to national limelight. We will use federal might to determine the course of the election. Remember the antecedent of Maurice Uwu? We thought we saw the worst when we had Maurice Uwu, but we were surprised that instead of our electoral process advancing positively in terms of the capacity of the Nigerian electoral umpire to deliver a free, credible, transparent election, it seems we're on the downward slide.
We're going to come back to that, sir. Let me just take some more headlines from inside the Sunday Independence here. I'm sure that we're going to have more instances of the situation in Edo State. Palliative distribution chaotic as Abuja residents throng collection centers. This is still on the Sunday Independence. Right there, stakeholders slam FG over cumbersome payment process. Tinubu's government sliding into dictatorship, say analysts, and insist authoritarianism is staring Nigerians in the face. Cite intimidation of nationalist activists with arrest detention. At the top for the Sunday Independence, POS operators registration low after extension of deadline. What do you expect? Bad network, financial constraints, blame for poor compliance, and a Accord Party state chairman gets appointed in Makinde's government, and group advocates transparent appointment of judges for Edo-Ondo elections petitions. Now, let's talk about transparency now regarding the appointments, like you've just heard from this headline here, regarding the appointment of judges for Edo and also Ondo election petitions. This might come. We might have situations where people would feel aggrieved and want to. What are the implications of where these suggestions for the appointments are coming from?
Well, with respect to the appointment of judges to the election tribunal, and I think the President of the Court of Appeal has already set up the tribunal, and then set out, they have an office somewhere in Benin to file. Ordinarily, it doesn't really matter where the judges come from ordinarily, because by their oath of office, they are expected to dispense justice to all manner of men without fear or favor and impartially. So I will expect that when they are appointed, that they discharge their duty, being true to their oath of office. Now, but the challenge that I have is the increasing lack of confidence of the populace in seeing recourse to electoral tribunal as a means of venting their grievance to resolving electoral dispute. As a lawyer, you practically, and we have to be sincere and truthful to ourselves, that the electoral process, apparently, the electoral jurisprudence, is not designed to actually give you justice. Let me repeat again. My view from observation from 1999 to date is that the electoral jurisprudence is not designed to give aggrieved candidates access to get true, proper justice.
Why is that?
Because of the burden placed on the petitioners to prove, for instance, cases of
Vote buying,
vote buying,
election malpractice.
You know, you can imagine in Edo State, where you have over 4,500 units, and perhaps if you have incidents of vote buying in about, let's say, 100 or 200 units, are you going to call 200? Or how many witnesses are you going to call? Who will come to court to say, oh yes, I was induced?
So whose responsibility is that? Not the petitioners, apparently.
But it's an impossible task for you
as
to show that in a polling unit of containing 500 voters, to call about 100 or 200 persons to come before the court to say to you, I was induced. I was induced. And even when you look at, even at the election petition trial itself, you discover that in terms of case management, of proceedings, of procedure at the election tribunal, the parties are allotted time within which to present their case.
Okay.
So if you, for instance, you have 200 witnesses and you are given 2 weeks to call 200 witnesses, and you are giving 20 minutes or 10 minutes each. So it's near impossible, except you have a technical legal point. Or maybe you're involved in an election involving perhaps maybe a much smaller constituency, involving 2 or 3 units. But when you are dealing with a case of electoral contest involving a state as large as Edo State, and you are relying on having scored the highest number of lawful votes, the burden on you to call witnesses, direct witnesses who were present at the unit, to to testify as to what is near impossible. And what we witness from the video making the rounds is that apparently they have introduced, the politicians have succeeded in introducing a new system of rigging the results.
What's the system?
Now, there was one or two videos that was viral. I'm sure you would have seen it, where the polling officer will raise the ballot paper, ostensibly counting the votes, but meanwhile will show the back of the ballot paper to the voters and declare the result for another party. So INEC and the society, they still need to do a lot in terms of voter engagement, talking to their INEC officials to ensure that they play by the rules.
Sarah,
yes.
And this makes me ask about the processes, the electoral process that we have. In the year 2022, and if I'm correct, please correct me, when President Muhammadu Buhari were looking at our electoral process and Professor Mahmoud Yakubu asked for the amount that he asked for the reforms of our electoral system and our process, then it was introduced the BVAS and the IREV. And so with the general elections, we saw that the IREV did not work. We also saw that the BVAS also did not work in certain areas. And now with an off-cycle election, with only one state, 18 local government areas, about 9 million voters, you would think that this process is this would be the time for INEC to redeem themselves. But with this scenario that you just explained to us with the video of the presiding officer reflecting a sheet, and what's on there is a lot different from what is now being put in the ballot paper. And so it begs to ask the question, then when is the right time in rejigging or looking at our processes over and over again until we get it right? Is it a year after? Is it until another election cycle? Is it on appointment of another INEC chairman? When is it the right time that we fix our electoral process?
Well, I think it has to do with the practitioners, the actors, the political actors, and the people. If they are not ready and willing to play by the rules, no matter the system, no matter the perfection of documentation, no matter how perfect the electoral act is, it's still not going to work. Personally, since 1999, and even under the 1979, during the Second Republic, there has really been nothing wrong with our various electoral acts. The challenge has always been the political actors, the practitioners, and then the electoral umpire. You see, but that's how, when you look at the life of a human being, that's how human beings are.
So you don't see a case where
we'll never get through the papers.
So we don't see a case where our electoral process will be fail-proof.
Not in the near future, because as you come up with a new electoral act and a new system, a new device, the political actors will come up with schemes to circumvent it. I'm sure
that we'll touch on this again as we go there. Judith, what paper do you have?
Yes, we'll move on to the next paper from Sunday Independence, which we've just been discussing now. And the next one that we're taking is the Punch newspaper. And as you see there on your screen, the very first one that comes at you, Edo poll, Igodalo Okpebolo in tight race as INEC uploads results. That story is on page 3. APC eyes lead in Edo North, PDP in South. Akpata loses polling unit. Oshomole Igodalo trade words over vote buying. At the very top there, most filling stations yet to get Dangote petrol. That's from Ipman. They can find this there on page 9. Let's not forget that the queues are still out there at the filling stations. At the top there, how the elderly PWDs brave downpour to cast votes in Edo. You can find that story on page 8. And also to sports, that Joshua suffers devastating second knockout loss there. That's on page 7. That was not even fun to look at.
I was embarrassed.
It wasn't fun to look at all.
This is my cousin, you know.
There, women should not let career success damage family life. That's from a Nigerian, and that series on page 22. DHQ denies detaining Nava rating for 6 years. That series on page 4. How celebs joined I Am a Chosen trend. That series on page 20. Manzino, are you chosen? Behind.
Let's talk about that after.
Behind the glamour, Lagos fashion show hit by rape, extortion allegations. A series on page 24 and 25. Local condom production begins soon. NACA DG. That story is on page 14. And lastly, voter apathy. Slow start, Mar, Kwara, Imo, Enugu local government polls. And that story is on page 5. Now, I've got 2 questions for you, Barrister Osara. Barrister Osara is our guest here. He's a legal practitioner. Now, the very first one about Edo here, Igodalo Okwebolo in tight race as INEC uploads the results. But very interesting is APC eyes lead in Edo North, PDP in South, and Akpata loses in polling units. You must have seen the clip. If you haven't seen the clip on our page, please go ahead and look at it. Perpetual, who is one of our correspondents here, and also one of the team from our business desk, did a fantastic job in profiling the local governments and what local governments is able to sway the elections, which have more numbers to sway the elections. And interestingly enough, it was the South that did, Edo South. But I must ask you, you are an indigene in Edo State. Yes. APC leads in Edo North, PDP, Edo South. Akpata loses his polling unit. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, I think that's according to prediction. You see, Edo North, that's the stronghold of Comrade Adams Oshomole, former governor and now senator. Was expected. Yeah, and I think the governor tried to see if he could cash in on some of the votes when he took the political decision to appoint Marvelous as his deputy. So how far that calculation will work out is yet to be determined, since we still have to wait for INEC to formally declare the result. But the performance of APC in Edo North, particularly in Esako, the 2 or 3 Esako local governments, is not unexpected because of the influence of Oshomole
being his stronghold.
Now the performance of the PDP in Edo South, particularly in Benin, is not also surprising. Particularly in the Benin area. You know, Benin Center is the urban area.
Urban area.
Yes, they've always voted progressive. When Oshomole came to power, he got most of his votes from the Benin axis. At that time, the populace were fed up with PDP and Godfatherism. So it's not surprising. In fact, early this morning, I was looking through the INEC IREF, and I saw, and I focused on, I tried to gauge what could be responsible, what could be the factor that pushes people to vote in certain direction. I said, well, let me focus on the elite area. So I went to the GROA. You can see their voting pattern. They went in one direction, fully. Now I zoom in on those areas that are in the rural areas, and areas that you see people by semi-illiterate and not so enlightened, and you could see the change. And I started to ask myself, how come the information and the reports we are getting as regards vote buying seem to come from the areas, the rural areas, the hinterlands, the riverine areas, areas that are more or less, I'm sorry to use the word, cut off from civilization or exposure.
Cut off from the urban areas.
Cut off from the urban areas. I'm sorry, but thank you very much. Cut off from the urban areas, or areas where you have illiterate kind of
Population.
Informal sector.
Not just informal
Judith
sector.
with all the buzzwords today. Thank
not
you,
all
Judith.
informal sector. I'm not the, but semi-illiterate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And where allegations of vote buying
Cannot occur.
was rife. One party seemed to, hold sway in that zone. So maybe it's something that going forward, because now the election has been had and done with. It's, going forward, it's now left for our researchers to look into that area and see factors that predispose people to vote in a certain way, aside from the fact of political affiliation or ethnic affiliation.
So before we move on to the next paper, I just wanted to say something about the zoning.
Yes.
Now, the zoning is strategic for the parties involved here,
Yes.
LP, PDP, and also the APC. It was strategic because they took advantage, it would seem that they took advantage of indigenship.
Yes.
Except for the LP, however. Now, how did it go wrong for the LP if the candidate actually lost his own unit?
Well, you see, for the LP, what LP had going for it in the 2022 general election was Peter Obi. Peter Obi is not on the ballot. And then the other factor could be because of the unspoken agreement amongst the political stakeholders, the political gladiators, that this time around, the power should shift to Edo Central. Apparently, I think there was a near unanimity amongst the political leaders that it should go to Edo Central.
So clearly this is a case of zoning.
Yeah, so
zoning gone wrong.
and then the Benin South, they are not, they don't play politics in Edo, they don't play politics like we have in Nigeria, where they say we want to dominate. Look, one will expect that with their population, they can decide like what happens in Kogi State to say, look, we want to feed our son all the time. And they will actually succeed in doing that. But that has not been the attitude. Perhaps it's historical, because you find out that practically everybody from Edo State trace their origin to Benin. I remember years back, my grandfather was mentioning to me our quarters in Benin.
Yeah.
So, and then I think that's the factor. It is not an indictment on the capacity of Ulu Akpata. Ulu Akpata, any day, is a good candidate. It's a good material.
Let's save that.
But
we said that the end is near, so we'll wait to see.
The dynamics did not favor his entry into the contest this time around.
Let's continue with the headlines from other papers this morning. Let's see what other paper we're going to be taking now. If I'm correct, I don't want to mention the wrong one. So now we're going to be doing the Nation newspaper. Nation newspaper has these headlines for a Sunday morning. Once again, Edopo, Okwebolo, Ihodalo in tight race. LP Akpata loses polling units to PDP candidate. INEC posts over 95% of results on portal. APC disregard fake election results in circulation. Police EFCC arrest suspected vote buyers. There's more on Daniel Dubois' knockout of Anthony Joshua in London. And at the top for the Nation newspaper, Tinubu celebrates wife's 64th birthday with heartfelt tribute. Congratulations to her.
All I want in life is somebody to sign their name and go, your first name.
It's not too late, Judith.
Well.
Says, now check this out. You are my rock, my confidant, greatest supporter. Isn't that from Boys to Men? Isn't that Boys to Men lyric? I don't know. I joke. The president is very romantic.
Very romantic. I knew I had a side to him.
Judith is all red. There's more. They have to come. There's more. Let's go back to the paper. Insights, bitter reality of Nigeria's pension trap. Oh yeah, this is a very interesting one. Starvation, death, grip elderly retirees amid economic hardship. A labyrinth of broken promises leaves pensioners in despair. This is a topic for the ages, as I've seen personally firsthand pensioners in Abuja waiting for their pensions, especially civil. And it's not a very good look at all. And you want to ask yourself, all the monies that I'm saving in my pension, when it gets to whenever I'm supposed to retrieve them, what's it going to be worth?
Hey, Mazuna, remember that place you used to work at?
Oh, wow. Judith,
moving on.
Certain
Moving on.
organization. But let's get back to the Edo politics here. And the fact that we didn't experience as much violence like we were expecting.
Yeah.
All the surveys that actually went before the elections posed that there was going to be perhaps widespread violence. I know it's not the end yet, as we're still expecting the results. And most people would say you should wait for that. But what's your take currently on the situation, seen as well, most people are pleased that it's gone the way it has gone so far? And let's also note, I'm going to let Judith do this part about the Obaseki intrusion.
Yeah,
office.
I'm excited
First off,
for that
the
one.
lack of office, a lack of violence. What's your take on it? Was it because of the 35,000 agents that were posted?
That's
to
right,
it?
it's
There are
35,000.
I think two factors could be responsible. One is voter apathy. Most residents, they believe, rightly or wrongly, that their votes will not count, so they didn't come out. And secondly is the report that some of the parties, their leaders in the various wards, were taken out of the scene. So the other party had a field day in whatever they were going to do. So there was nobody really to resist. So unlike in the past, when we had incidents of vote buying, and you see the two or three major parties actively engage in it. But this time around, only one party in some parts of the state was actually involved in that.
Our report actually says that it was quite evenly spread amongst the parties, especially two major parties, he said. I'm not going to mention exactly which ones, but I'm going to take Amadin's word on that one, because he was on ground to observe.
Yes. Now, the other parties, I cannot say they were not in the contest in terms of vote buying, because the story, we don't know how true it is, but that's the story we hear from the feed. You cannot compare a situation of 2,000 to 3,000 to someone offering 10 to 20 or 30. Or we even heard of cases of 50,000 naira. So it's like one party had a fit day. Their party leaders were moved out of the scene. And then a lot of voters had lost confidence in the process because they believed their vote will not count. Others were scared because of the belief that they were going to deploy federal might. And that belief was reinforced when the IG came to Edo State. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? And outlawed the ESSN. Because I got calls from home that, now that this has happened, there's no way for that for the other political party. And that they're not going to come out. That they want to save their life. And in any case, their vote will not count. That's my take on it.
No. Do you think that the Governor Godwin Obaseki also thought that the people's vote would not count, so he needed to make sure of it by visiting the INEC's office early hours of
the information we have that I have is to suggest that the governor went in there to insist that the right procedure be followed.
Did he have the legal right to be there as a governor of a prominent party? I mean, it could be taken anyway. It could be taken that he might want to influence.
He is the chief security officer. And he had a duty to ensure that there's peace and tranquility.
You can send an email and make a phone call now.
There is any action that has the potential of disturbing the peace and security of that state, he has a duty to point it out.
There is that, but then again, it's also quite damning because it could also
be misread as anything.
For instance, a secondary classmate of mine was at a polling unit, Egosa Grammar School. I attended Egosa Grammar School. That's where I concluded my secondary education.
Yeah,
so Egosa was designated as one of the polling units, collation centers. Okay. We got a report from one of the classmates of ours who was there, because it's our school. So we needed to be interested to see, look, what's going to happen in our school. We hope they don't do some damage to some of the facilities the old boys have been trying to put together for the school. And we got the report, we understand at certain period of the night, early hours of the morning, security men, soldiers came on, and then everything changed, and then they moved the materials.
How does he intend to make sure that due process is followed, where the pictures are being shown, you can see him sitting there on a chair at the corridors as I just pulled up, inactive, How does he intend to aid the process, When it's late, it's not even daytime yet, it's not daybreak yet. These are sensitive materials. As a chief executive officer, you could have done a statewide broadcast. You could have granted interview to press. There's so much that you could have done instead of jumping this entire process.
That's why the observers
to go to the office or the INEC and sit down there and to make. Maybe that's why he's sitting down there, to make sure that they don't do.
So I'm sure in the course of the day, the governor will come out to explain the purpose of his mission to the INEC.
No problem. So Judith, we've got more papers. I'm hoping that we can take more papers. I haven't been instructed otherwise, but let's see what other paper we have.
We just finished with the Nation there. We'll move on to our next one for today, which is This Day newspaper. There we go. And the very first one that comes at you there. Air Chief, federal government delivered 12 aircraft to NAF in 1 year. Says more to be delivered in coming months. CDS restates armed forces commitment to restoring peace. You can find that story on page 5. At the top there, reports 6 banks paid 453.71 billion naira as levies insurance premium to APCOM, NDIC, and that's the first half of 2024. You can find that story on page 5. Tinubu Shatima Akpabio order eulogize First Lady on her 64th birthday. That story is on page 6. At the bottom there, you can see APC claims victory in 13 Edo local government areas. PDP protests suppression of votes in 3 populous local governments. And then it goes on there, Akpabio, Obaseki, Osonwo-Olu, Abiodun, Oboriwori, Otu, Ayedati, storm INEC office. Police arrest suspects for vote buying. Other offenses. Oshomele denies vote buying allegation against APC. You can find the story and more on page 5. Still on the, we just talked about the strongholds for each party, especially for the most popular. That's the PDP, which is the ruling party for the state, and for the APC as well, which is the ruling party for the nation. But we also did talk about that, as well as the visit to the INEC office. And these other persons, Akpabio, Sanwo-Olu, Abiodun, Oboriwori, Otu, Ayedati. And so it begs to ask the question, is this legal? Can they do that? Especially on just hours after voting have ended. Are they allowed to go into the INEC office according to the law? You're a legal practitioner.
Yes. Strictly speaking, according to the law, only party agents or persons designated and accredited by INEC ought to be allowed within the precinct of the collation center. So it's unusual that, and then we're all surprised that is happening, and then it brings to mind the need for the electoral umpire and all those concerned in the administration of the electoral process to play by the rules, to try to gain and win the confidence of the people. So I'm sure this is happening because of a lack of confidence of the political actors in the process being meanwhiled by INEC. Otherwise, each and every party, because these are the names you just read out, these are powerful men in Nigeria. And then they all broke the rules. And then they all went to INEC office, which they ought not to do. So we want to call on INEC. Play by the rule. Obey the guidelines. And the security agents, be professional in your attitude. be professional, be unbiased and impartial. Once the people perceive that the air of neutrality and impartiality in the actors, that the politicians from the politicians who play by the rule, the INEC official who follow the dictates of the guidelines, and then the security personnel, the police, the army, and the DSS, who act fairly and professionally. I'm sure incidents of this nature will be removed. We pray that Nigeria will get to the stage or the position where we can all, fold our hands or raise our hands up in jubilation, in pride, to say, oh yes, indeed, that was a free and fair electoral process.
And who would be responsible for that? INEC, the people, or what exactly?
It's a combination of all.
A collabo.
It's a combination of all. So it's the people. Is what you see. What you reap, what you sow. Okay. What you put in is what you get. The society deserves what you get. For instance, we keep talking about voters' inducement, voter suppression, rigging. If the people don't want it, it will not happen.
Speaking of the people, the headline here from this day, it's APC claims victory in 13 local government, Edo local government areas. PDP protests suppression of votes in 3 populous local governments. Now, this is, we haven't seen the final result here, right? Yes. And I must state this very clearly. But going by this and giving that there's 18 local government areas, if they claim, 5 can overthrow if they have higher numbers. Even the remaining, that's 5 now, the remaining ones can overthrow this result if they have higher voter turnout compared to the 13 local government areas. But one thing is certain, with this, and for going by this, an Okpebolo comes out, or APC comes out.
You see, it's interesting that as we speak now, the results, 90-something%, before I came on to the studio, the over 90-something%
was on the IREP.
It's on the IREP.
It's on the IREP.
You see, and for the political parties, they pretty much have from ECFA the results with them, so they can do the calculation, and the numbers is already known. Now, under there's a requirement under the Constitution regarding the percentage of votes you need to score 1/4 of the votes in 2/3 of the local government. In this case, 2/3, 1/4, 2/3 of 18 to be declared. As at the time we came on air, INEC, I'm not aware that REC or the collation officer or return officer had declared any.
No. Yeah, it's not.
So we are waiting for the official declaration.
We wait. As we wait, it was very interesting. Just if anyone was to come up and take the mantle, what should be their first line of action? The very first one. I just need you to answer one statement because we'll have out of time.
Good governance.
It's good governance. Sometimes it's a blanket. We're saying good governance.
Governance.
One thing: infrastructure, education, healthcare. What is it? What is good governance?
There is a kaleidoscope of challenges.
Yeah, I say one thing.
The state and indeed the nation. So we should hold to their campaign promises and be able to do in accordance with the funds, the revenue available.
Barrister Bumere, tell you what we'll do. We'll go on a short break. We'll still have you here when we get back, but we're going to go on a short break. And when we come back, we're also going to be meeting or talking with our correspondents inside of Edo State to see what's starting to happen now, whether we're expecting for...
Just to be clear, that's Orwell. Yes,
Orwell from Africa Check. We had certain instances of fake information being dispersed before the elections and even yesterday, which we checked yesterday. So we're going to have a return of Orwell come back to us and give us those details again. Let's go on this short break, and we'll still have Barrister Abumere here with us to give us some more of his opinion. And you're welcome back. We're still covering the events inside of Edo State for the gubernatorial elections that took place yesterday, as we're expecting numbers to come in and collation results. We'll be bringing you details with our correspondents across Edo State. But we also have analysts and observers here with us. We'll be joined right now by Orwell Okpi. He is from Fact Check Africa. Oh, well, thank you very much for joining us again this morning. We were together yesterday. Well, you joined us yesterday and we spoke about some of the information that were fact-checked by your organization yesterday, some of them quite misleading. I'm hoping that you can remind us of some of those from yesterday and if there are any new ones that might have made rounds that need to be checked right now.
Okay, yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, all well from Africa Check. Ever this election, we've been working with other fact checkers in the Nigerian fact checking coalition, and we, since 2 days ago, been working from a situation in Lagos and Abuja. Yes, much of what happened on the eve of the election was, claims about candidates stepping down for the other candidates, especially the major candidates. Found literally all of them claims that they had stepped down for other person, and then in addition to that, there were also claims about courts disqualifying candidates. One major one that went viral was a claim that the Supreme Court had disqualified the candidate of the PDP as Alo, and it's vetted quite well, but obviously that is completely false. In fact, the report, the way it went out, it said that the verdict was given by the Supreme Court on that Friday, and with a check, there was nothing like that. There's even no evidence that the Supreme Court sat on any matter on that day. Then there was also a matter of the magistrate court disqualifying the APC candidates. And then we did look into that. Obviously, in fact, this one, there was a document that circulated claiming that that's the judgment of the magistrate court on that matter, and that too was completely false. Obviously, there was an utter around then uncritical looking into the issue with the discrepancy in age of candidate, but then there's absolutely no judgment whatsoever on that, sort of disqualifying that candidate. So those obviously had some impact, at least in the information space. We don't know how, to what extent they may have influenced the voting yesterday.
I was going to ask about that, Owell, regarding the influence it might have had on the voting. If you were to give a wild guess, if you were to give a wild guess, and also to consider the amount of time that these information spent in the rounds, during the rounds, do you think that in any small way or large way they might have affected the elections?
No, sorry, it would have, because obviously people make decisions with this information, and before an election there's always those rumors that a certain candidate might up, step down, but that happens quite well with candidates of less known parties, but the major candidates, if that to happen, then it has a very huge impact. So imagine someone who had made up his own mind to vote for a particular major candidate, and then you wake up that morning or the eve of the election and you hear that this person has been disqualified. In fact, there was a post that we saw about talking about the PDP candidate and disqualified by the Supreme Court, and the person went on to say that every vote cast for PDP will be will not count. So imagine someone getting that kind of information. A potential impact is that maybe the person say, well, there is no need for me to go out and vote.
Oh,
Oh, well, look, we there from Fact Check Africa. They're just giving us updates on some of the rapid spread of disinformation, misinformation, especially surrounding the Edo State Gubernatorial Elections. And he joined us earlier just to give us more update on that and sort of clarify some of the key most significant fake news stories that trended during this election. He's back now. Well, I'll continue. We lost you for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but on election day, the pattern was a bit different, right? Which obviously sort of aligns with the patterns of previous elections that we have seen, which is that there were much of what we're seeing had to do with a disruption of voting here, violence. And you see with a lot of photos and videos that circulated claiming that, okay, this evidence of disruption of voting in some polling units somewhere. And obviously, some of them, when we checked, they were correct. However, quite a number of them also were false, and they came from previous elections.
We seem to be having issues with it.
We saw videos from 2019 and 2023 general elections, where you see where ballot boxes were aching and things were ballot that were scattered all over the place, and they were not from this election. And that's sort of a normal pattern that usually happens, and different parties in this, people who have different interests in this, use those old videos to push those narratives, to probably push their own agenda around the election. But then also, we also saw, fake declaration of results, different other up in different places around the election. And of course, some of them, like this one that Mara, which is like a picture of a result sheet from a polling unit in Isako, and which went round, which shows that the number of accredited voters was about 200 and something, and then and then the total votes ended up as over 400, and that's obviously quite an issue. And we did check and confirm that is true, and that's something that probably INEC might have to explain how that is possible for a number of votes to be way more than the number of accredited voters in a particular polling unit. So much of what is going on now is around results. As we know, INEC hasn't declared any result yet, and of course by law it is INEC that has to do that. And so what's going on is people pushing different narratives of who won where, and of course but I understand we see that the IREV worked quite well this time. I think as of the last, that over 90% of the polling unit result uploaded, and that was also one area where there was a bit of misinformation, because we found also some claims that INEC is not uploading anything on the IREV. But then as of the time that claim was circulating, there were already quite a number of results uploaded there. So different actors are also sort of looking at the IREV and putting together the votes as they are, and then so only different versions of the results are out there, but we're going to have to wait to see what INEC is going to declare at the end of the day.
In your opinion, and just observing the election and just, and then observing and watching and managing the spread of disinformation and misinformation during this off-cycle election, what would be your assessment of INEC?
I think we might have... he's frozen.
Seem to have lost him there. We'll
Yeah,
try
he's
to
frozen.
bring him back on. But as always,
Into the issues.
yeah, we lost you there for a second. Oh, well, we'll continue, please.
Okay, yeah. So what? No, it's really how INEC respond to issues of false information circulating, all that. Well, I experienced that there's let's say an improvement in terms of being responsive for some of the issues on ground, because we've had to speak to the INEC officials to confirm certain information, and to a great extent they did to confirm some of those information, and then also they have also on well in terms of communicating on their platform, but then of course it's always there's always a lot of room for improvement in that, but generally we're not really able to comment on. Obviously that will be done post-election, and obviously more of the observers who are right there in the field are in better position to make give those verdicts.
Well, we can't wait for the results. In fact, that's what we're doing here today, waiting for those to come in so we can also tell factually. However, regarding the information that was circulated before the elections that were not correct, who were they targeted at? What medium was used to disseminate these information? And maybe from there, you could tell what the intent of the people who actually pushed those information out was.
Yeah, so obviously, in elections like this, the target is always the voter. It is sort of to sway the voters' perception of events, of candidates, of parties, sort of influence voter behavior.
Oh well,
right?
I'll stop you there. I'll stop you there for a second and rephrase. Now we are aware that of course it was for the voters. They wanted the voters to get these disinformation so that it will influence their voting. However, were they specific targets and specific medium or media that were used? Was it, for instance, social media? Was it the papers? Was it word of mouth? And from there, what was the intent? To sway youth, for instance, or to sway older or middle-aged people? I'm looking for the specific intention of these misinformation.
All right. So in terms of platform, obviously the biggest platforms are sort of the social media, and much of what we saw, like generally for when you talk about politics, one of the most active platform is X, that's former Twitter. That's where much of the communication around politics governance happen, and so we did see a lot of this information on that platform. But then there were also on Facebook. There were also on WhatsApp, which is obviously one of the platforms that people use a lot to push narrative because of the end-to-end encryption. So it's even a lot more difficult for us as fact checkers to know what is going on those platforms. So generally, much of it happened on social media, but then of course it doesn't just end there. Whatever happens on social media also move into word of mouth. Going into those communities, you might say, okay, social media doesn't have so much impact in rural communities, but that is not quite true, because the people who get this information from social media are able to, spread it through word of mouth in their rural communities, and then of course stuff like WhatsApp, sort of have a wider reach, and a lot of this thing, they jump from one platform to the other. So obviously, sort of the people that it will most influence are probably undecided voters, because people who are already stuck with their parties, whether they are supporting a particular party or the other for some level of affiliations, they might not be so much influenced by some of this false information. Much of the influence will be around undecided voters, and of course the younger demographic, which based on the voter statistics, the youth obviously had the larger percentage of registered voters in this election. So that bracket obviously is where the impact will be the most. And so and then about the intention, yes, it's always to put a particular candidate in a bad light relative to another, so that it's someone who may not necessarily have a candidate in mind, but take that information and say, oh, if this is true about this guy, then I'm not voting for that person, rather than probably choose someone else. But then with all that, the narratives around this election, it went beyond the candidates. There are obvious issues around Godfatherism, former governors or incumbent, supporting certain candidates. And so all of those influences or the narratives around that did play in this election in terms of the type of information that was going round. So it was a whole lot of targeted on personalities in that way. Then obviously it's to swear.
We have with us in the studio Barrister Osaro Abumere, and I need you to listen to this question I'm going to ask him, because I'm going to need your reaction for after. So, Barrister, like you've just heard Orwell tell about the misinformation that was propagated before the election, perhaps maybe during the election, and it makes me wonder whose responsibility, or does INEC have any responsibility at all regarding these kinds of information that are being passed before any election or during the election, and in subsequent elections to come? Should they, and what apparatus could they use? I guess that's Orwell's bit now, but should they have a responsibility in tackling these misinformation?
I don't think so, because that I believe INEC will be going outside the constitutional powers of INEC. INEC has its role clearly defined, its function clearly defined under our laws. They are to conduct election, manage the election process. If when it comes to question of dissemination of false information, some other agencies of government could well be responsible for that. Some of those information could be violation of several other laws, the penal laws, criminal code, the Cyber Crimes Act, and all the rest. So depending on, don't forget, we also have the National Orientation Agency. So they have a role to play. So I don't think INEC has a role really, to play in that regard, save for INEC to restate the work they are doing to the people, to say, this is what we have put out, these are our guidelines, these are our rules, these are our results.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, Orwell, you heard his entry there. If INEC, and that's just if INEC was to say they want to take responsibility in subsequent elections, what apparatus could they use?
Obviously, I mean, election is multi-stakeholder event or process, but INEC could still help in at least one way, which is to make sure that, information around issues are, out there proactively. When a matter of misinformation and disinformation, really, it's something that you can really look out for to say, typically during election, this kind of false information, circulates, and then you can proactively ensure that information around that is out there. So for organizations generally, when you are not apt to edit to communicate or provide accurate information on time, then you give that space for false narrative to thrive. And so if INEC is going to do something about information, is to ensure that sort of they up their game in communicating on time about every issue that is more likely going to be controversial, and those things can be predicted, and because similar patterns happen across elections, right? And so, but then with other INEC actually did raise concern about the spread of fake news even before the election, and that some ways they could also collaborate with journalists to ensure that information will always be out there before the people who create the false narrative start pushing. Because once there is that gap in information, then obviously they will fill it with something, because people are hungry to know what's going on, and then there will always be that that way to. So INEC can actually work with fact checkers to look at how they ensure that every information that could anything that could lead to a space where a narrative can thrive, is blocked before it is spread, and and then of course way to ensure that the fact checkers are really on this matter. So we as the Nigerian Fact Checkers Coalition, we are always open to collaborate with INEC in any way possible to sort of ensure that elections are free of false information. And then of course there could be some things that could be done around the social media platforms, in parts of the world, that's really that look into how social media platforms can also help in flagging some of this false information as they come up. We, of us as fact checkers, do work with some of the platforms. Actually engage fact checkers to check the things that are posted there. So that could be ways around making that arrangement stronger, so that before these things begin to circulate, the accurate information is already out there. That's usually one of the ways to nip it at the bud before it spreads so far and have quite an impact on the election.
It will be the first time that there's any consideration to facts and how it's disseminated inside of an election period. Maybe INEC is actually thinking about this for the next election. Perhaps they are. Do you think that perhaps maybe they must put together a different body to be able to help with fact-checking information? We see that in other countries, the developed countries, that there are institutions that are in place already to help with this situation. Should Nigeria be looking at that, and how feasible is that? Well, for the coming elections, we have a couple coming in a couple of weeks. So, what's your thought on that?
Well, we actually started this the Young Fact Checking Coalition in June 2022. June 2022, about a year to the election, the general election, and after we did that in the general election, this model was actually adopted in quite a number of countries in Africa, Kenya, South Africa, where fact checkers, journalists come together to put this coalition where people are actually monitoring what is going on around the election. So I think it is something, if there's going to be any I think that this this fact-checking coalition is already a platform for that, and it only needs to be made more robust, with more active involvement of INEC as the major organization in elections like this, and then probably other stakeholders, so that some of these things can be looked at in a more proactive way, and the checks and all that will be done in a more comprehensive way to ensure that nothing escapes. Because truly, if we look at it, disinformation is a major factor, considering the fact that election is really about people making decisions, whether to vote or not to vote, and who to vote on election day. So all of that, if it is, what we already have as a fact-checking coalition can be sort of built on. We could have such an organization or a body that can, to a larger extent, be able to solve the problem, or at least reduce it very significantly, the spread of false information around elections.
Speaking of false information around elections, we're waiting for the collation to get started for today. We were informed it might start by 11 or 12 noon today. Regarding misinformation, are there frequent cases from the last elections where there's misinformation about the results and the collation and the numbers of votes to a certain party to come out around this time? Have you seen cases like this from the last time?
Yes, obviously. I mean, this period is usually the most tense period around the election, where voting is done, and then collation, and this is where much of the allegations around interference happen, right? So I think this is really the period where INEC should actually be the most transparent, the most proactive in providing information, because from what we have seen, from what people have been saying for this election, that there's this delay in the collations, and that. So when those kind of things begin to happen, you see there's that room for speculations of what is happening, who is bribing who is adjusting the results and all that. So if it is good for INEC to be more transparent around how this collation goes on, and continue to inform the public around it, it probably will help. That has always been the pattern from every election. Once it gets to the stage of collation, there's usually that that space where nobody's sure what's going on, and then before you get to the announcement of results, and then obviously when in that period people begin to push different results from however they're able to calculate it, and when those narratives go out that a particular party has won, and then the results, when the INEC then announces the result, and you find that the result is different from the narrative that have gone spread quite far on social media, then you find that you have a situation where there is likelihood of protests or people getting angry about the result by INEC, and then of course different stakeholders are going to protest. They know this is not the result as we have it. So really, this is usually about the most tense period I think that INEC can do better to, continuously inform the public about what is going on, and to assure everyone that nothing illegal is going on around the collation. Because at the end of the day, by law, it's INEC that's supposed to declare the result of the election, and it will be in the interest of everyone that what is declared aligns with what we have already on the IRIF.
All right. Well, as always, thank you so much for doing this with us, and well done with Africa Check there, with all the solid analysis and just making sure that the people and the populace stay informed. And that's Owa Lokbi. He's the community manager for Africa Check. Once again, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you.
Let's take a short break at this point. When we come back on the other side, there is more analysis right here as we wait for the results of the collation to begin in Edo State. This is the live coverage of the Edo Gubernatorial Elections on News Center TV. Stay right there. We'll be back.
And you're welcome. It's the final segment here for the coverage.
Final segment?
This, well, with myself and Judith, for the coverage of the Edo gubernatorial elections that we've been covering since yesterday, starting each day out with my co-host here, Judith, and I've been pushed to the end of the desk, quite literally. That's because we have very interesting guests with us. From yesterday, we have Dr. Omojo, or Dr. Owen Omojo. She's a very concerned indigene of Edo State, and her views are very interesting. We can't wait to hear some of them. And of course, joining us still is Mr. Liberus Oshoma. He's a lawyer and also a very interesting political analyst, and also Dr. Omojo is a fan. Am I allowed to say that?
Well, one thing is certain, Mr. Oshoma is a veteran political analyst as well, so everyone, of course, do know who he is, and it's a pleasure to have both of them join us today. We're also being informed that we're getting visuals from the Collation Center at Edo State as collation will begin shortly. There are visuals that we've been getting. We're going to share that with you in subsequent as you can see there, that is the State Collation Center there for you for Edo State, right there, the city there. We're still waiting for the officials, and that's the presiding officers for every polling unit, as well as the polling unit officers, all to present their results so that they can collate the sheets. We might be able, we do not know this is not stated yet, but chances are that we might start seeing the collation in a couple of minutes. Once again, those visuals there that you're seeing on your screen is from the State Collation Center in Edo State, the capital there, Benin City. I'm back into the studio now with our guest as we get started. It's been quite an eventful elections yesterday. We saw the candidates cast their votes. But the early hours of this morning took a twist and a turn that can only be scripted by a screenwriter for Nollywood, and that was the presence of the governor of Edo State, and that is Governor Obaseki at the INEC offices at the early hours of this morning. We also spoke with Comrade Orebosa Omojo, who shared with us visuals and images of him inside of the building, seated as he was on his phone. Now, we cannot confirm if those images were of the same time that he was there, but it looked like it was him because he was wearing the same clothing from the video and from the images as well. And you can see him standing there with police, with his security details, also him sitting down there. And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Oshoma, and get your thoughts on his visit to the INEC office.
Yeah, you should understand that this election is like a referendum for Obaseki. Even though Aswan is on the ballot, it's like a referendum for him. And even though also every governor that's running for a re-election would criticize a godfather, but at the end they also want to be a godfather. Oshomole criticized Chetone Aneni. At the end of this tenure, he also imposed or projected Obaseki, and subsequently wanted to bring in Belebe Izeyamu, and Obaseki at the same time now projecting as well. And so every governor, they all do it. You remember in Rivers in 2015, the the APC candidates. All of them trooped to INEC office, calling INEC names. You know, even in the north, at the heat of staggered elections like this, you see governors, especially when they are also participating in the election. Oshomole in his second term election, because materials arrived Garrick Memorial, materials arrived in Iyamu before 10, but as at 10, materials had not arrived Garrick Memorial, which is one of the, you have about more than 4 polling units in Garrick Memorial alone in Ekawan Road. So Oshomole was crying foul by 10 a.m. in the morning, his re-election. So you are not, all this thing, everything you are seeing now had happened before. And so, but the funniest part is because we don't have a sense of history. And then people saying Obaseki is not on the ballot. Yes, he's not on the ballot, but by extension, is a referendum on him. If he wins, you know, no matter what you see, irrespective of what Obaseki would have done or what had happened, he would still say, despite, you know, the campaigns of calumny against him or the perceived enmity between him and the palace, that Edo people still overwhelmingly voted for his candidate. So that's why you see that desperation. Also, at the same time, you see I would say Obaseki's attitude towards governance united the traditional politicians against him. And for the first time in Edo North, after a long while, before now, if Oshomole is on one side, you see Chief Danobi on the other side. There's never been a time, even apart from the 2015 general election, the Buhari election, there's never been a time when all the gladiators, political gladiators in the north of Edo were together, you know, campaigning for a candidate. But because Obaseki was unable to manage these people, so you saw all of them in one pool. You know, a marriage of strange bedfellow. You have Chief Danobi, you have Senator Francis Alemekena, you have Professor Oheware, you have Oshomole, you have Philip Shaibu. All of these people, apart from Ogiadome, all of these people had never worked together. But for the first time, they are working together. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And people like Aslem Ojezwa that were in APC also that followed Obaseki to PDP. Obaseki, those people who welcomed him into PDP, people like Omarige Obede Hama, Aslem Ojezwa followed him into PDP. And then you have people like in Benin also, I'm trying to remember the other people now who worked against him in 2020. But today, they've been given a political appointment in APC federal government. So they call themselves the legacy PDP people. So he knows what he's up against. That's why you see him, you know.
I like the term you use, legacy PDP. And at the end of the day, this seems like a Godfather race, whether you like it or not. It's like we're not even paying attention to the candidates anymore. We're not paying more attention to the Godfather.
And then, yeah.
How legit is it that he was actually inside of that building? And if you can also note that it might be that there is some sort of influence that could be attributed, or that he could leave there with.
See, that here we delude ourselves when, you know,
we say that there's no Godfather. Thank you, because earlier on, I'm sorry to cut you there, but earlier on we had Comrade Omojo, and I know I'm throwing someone under the bus here, but Comrade Omojo, who is the Director of Publicity for the Edo APC Campaign Council, he said that the state didn't have a Godfather, and I asked him, but Oshomole, who was a former governor, is the former national chairman of the state, and his stronghold, correct me if I'm wrong, is the north, which you just alluded to. And so, can we be honest?
Let me tell you, in Nigeria, there are no ungoverned political territories. Every territory is controlled by somebody. And that's why politicians are not interested in the space or in the numbers, but in the polling units. Every politician, no matter how illiterate you think the politician is, he will tell you the number of polling units in the area. And so, they know who controls each polling unit. And that's why they share money. Oh, this leader here. Once you see this leader, you have seen everybody. So in every election, there is a Godfather. But because of the negativity we have attracted around Godfatherism, so they want to distance themselves. Otherwise, you look at the campaigns. apart from Olumide Akpata's campaign, for PDP, you saw Oshomole Obaseki was at the forefront. He was leading the charge. Even though at the beginning you saw Aswe trying to distance himself from Obaseki, but you can't do it because he practically, brought you on board. And because of the misgivings of, the traditional politicians and the crisis of the palace with Obaseki, so the man would want to distance himself, but it was almost impossible. For Oshomole, you saw him, he was almost the one holding Ogbewolo's hand everywhere. Let me give you an instance. There was a time in Lagos here, a politician, I think Mushin local government area, the people were complaining. Was it Mushin or Oshodi Solo? People were complaining, and so they went to Tinubu. The local government chairman was to go for a second term. And they said, they went to Tinubu, and then the people were saying, no, we don't know this man, and we don't know him. And Tinubu asked, do you know me? They said, yes, we know you. It's okay.
That means you know him.
That means you know him. That has ended the whole thing. So the question is, do the people know this person? If they don't know him, do they know the man who is bringing him on board? You saw in 2020, it was the same Oshomole. He knelt down for everybody. Everything he said against Belebe, that's, anytime I say Belebe, it's Izeyamu. That's his nickname. Everything he said against Izeyamu, he recanted. That's politics. It's only politics in Nigeria that will make a sane man sit down and eat with a madman.
Right.
You have to learn to manage your people. So there is clearly in Nigerian politics Godfatherism. Otherwise, carry your money, go contest and see if you will lose.
I'm going to come to Owen. Owen, I need you to also, give your reaction, because I see you're fine girl, is not part of the job. But seriously, away from that, right? The kind of look that this gives to Godwin Obaseki on a national level, and being walked out and then booed at, is just, and called Ole, which loosely translates to thief. The governor of the state, that kind of look.
I think it's shameful, and I mean, if you have governed the state for 8 years, and the people are so unhappy with you to the point where they boo you, that speaks volumes.
But that's
right?
subjective.
But then again, I know you'd probably say, oh, it was APC supporters who were booing him and all of that, but still, but then I think the bigger issue is, in terms of security, how was he able to get past security to get into the INEC office? And he was even offered a chair to sit in the INEC office.
So governor, he can't be standing now.
No. But the thing is, it's against the rules. And so if the umpire INEC, knows that he shouldn't be there, then they should have respectfully asked him to leave. So this thing of Naoga, I think the right thing should have been done. The security operatives, the 35,000 policemen and 8,000 other security operatives that were, deployed to Edo State could not stop Governor Obaseki from getting. And please, I want to get into this Godfatherism conversation just for 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
I think Godfatherism in itself is not a negative thing. True. Right? I think it has just been bastardized in the Nigerian context, where when you hear Godfatherism, you automatically think this person is coming to deplete the resources of the state that's meant for the common man and all of that. A godfather can be seen to be a mentor, can be to be a sponsor. You know what I mean? So I think it's just in the context, in the Nigerian context, the way it has been misused. Pointing in reference what's going on in River State between Wike and his godson Fubara. It's that things like that. When things like that happen, I think it gives a negative connotation, and it continues to drive that narrative of Godfatherism being a bad thing. But Godfatherism in itself, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a negative thing. But I just think it's the way that we have,
or is it the way that the Godfathers themselves have acted in the past?
Exactly. Of course, the Godfathers.
It is the way Godfathers behave in politics in Nigeria.
Exactly.
So, and that's why, what usually happens in the days of Chief Tony and Neni, the average, politician or the average follower of the Godfather will tell you the only language is loyalty. And they tell you, normal loyal, the loyal. That's, if you are not loyal, you will chop suffer.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and loyalty is only defined by them. You know, it's like a regimented, environment. You can grumble, but don't complain. So even if you are the most qualified, for example, you are the most qualified, they can say, well, step down, let this other person go for no reasons at all. And to show that you are not angry, okay, go and donate to the campaign. So you don't have a say. So the manipulation is what gives the negative vibes that, oh, the Godfatherism. But ordinarily, Godfatherism is not a bad thing. You can be mentored. I have got sons. Yeah. Even as Catholics, you have got sons. I hope my godmother isn't watching. And people you mentor, people even in marriages, they say, okay, who are your godparents to counsel you?
This talk of Godfatherism seems like you need a godfather, at least as far as the Edo elections are coming to actually succeed. Well, but let's focus on Edo now. Now, it would seem that in the beginning where we had 17 parties registered here, at the end, we only heard of 3 running up to the end.
There are pretenders and there are contenders.
Now, we're only hearing of 3. And then all of a sudden, just 2. Whatever happened to the LP candidates?
Before Olumide Akpata got the ticket, if you listen to him and you follow his body language, he had consistently said it, that his opponents are not PDP and APC. His opponents are within Labour. Even before he got the ticket, you saw the back and forth between the national chairman and the treasurer of the party, and the accusations of bribery, accusations of selling tickets, forgery. Even in that Edo, the national chairman was dragged on the floor. It's all in this same Labour crisis.
But this is a party that people had hope on for the restoration.
Let's not take away Peter Obi's influence. It was Peter Obi. Outside Peter Obi, Labour, outside. That was why the PDP and the APC kept telling them, you have no structure. In politics in Nigeria, people undermine what politicians call structure. When they tell you they are oiling political machineries, like I said somewhere yesterday, I have been in a gathering. The politician would come to his community. Almost everybody in the community will come to his compound. That's why they build large, massive houses. And then he stood at the gates and was sharing. They give you, you go out. They give you, you go out. There was no election, nothing. So these are people, these are just oiling the political machineries. So they will keep you poor. They weaponize poverty. So when they give you little, you appreciate. So for somebody like Olumide Akpata, his party has no such people who had been sharing. Even those people in the party are also angry. Where are you coming from? Who are you? We have been bidding our time, and then you just come, you take it, take the structure.
Then how did Abia State do it?
Abia State, let me tell you, if the election had been conducted with the general election, that
off-cycle.
That effect. And then, I've done election petition in Abia State for, from 2015, 2019, and 2023. So, Alex Oti had consistently been on the ballot. Had been on the ballot all of these times. In 2015, he almost won that election with ABGA. And then they said PDP rigged it for OKZ. 2019, he was still in ABGA. But he didn't, he wasn't able to garner the kind of support because of funds. But 2020, with the OB effect and the groundwork that Alex Oti had done previously, it just gave him that. So, like Olumide is a new entrant into the race. And then his running mate also, Asama Kadri SAN, is from Auchi, also a new entrant into the race. Give it to them, they tried. They tried because if you listen to him, he said, even his party, they are telling him, look, don't waste this money. It's a night before election that we need this money. His party members at that debate, he said they were telling him, so because they believe in funds for election. And so that is why you hear vote buying. People were paying as much as 50,000 naira, depending on your status. Some people collected as much as 20,000. In Yoruba, they call it Dibo Esebe. Vote and go and cook soup, especially this time of hunger. So, and then the politicians also have evolved a strategy where they call, vote I see and then I pay. Unlike where I pay, you go and vote for whoever you want to vote for. They say, vote, let me verify. Then they give you a piece of paper, go to that place, go and collect your money. Right before security operatives. And you rig election where you are popular. So where you are popular, they'll deploy money. That's why if you are not a state governor and you don't have the financial war chest, you can't prosecute election. So for Olumide, he couldn't have been able to cover the ground. How much does he have? No political structure, no House of Assembly member. Even the senator from Edo South, the Labour senator, we didn't see him. So Obi will come appeal to the people, but mind you, Obi is no longer on the ballot. The general elections are over. The people also are saying that the lawmakers from Labour that went to National Assembly are not different from the rest. So some will like, well, it was Obi that I followed, not Labour. So and then the Edo South, the Benin factor. Olomido is a Benin man. Obaseki is a Benin man. Even though, let me tell you, Nigerian election is very funny. People that will tell you, no, then let's look at merit when it does not affect them. When it affects them, they'll tell you, no, it has to be, you have to look at, where the candidate is from.
Justice, equity, and fairness.
Yes, so we bandy this, justice or fairness to suit our whims and caprices. Yeah. So for Olumide, nobody's not talking about the competence. Oh yes, he's competent, but he's a Benin man. As if though Obaseki's governance meant anything to the Beninese. Otherwise, we won't have problem with the Oba.
Let's take away the candidates now and let's look at INEC's efforts so far. And Dr. Owen, if I was to ask you to give a scorecard so far, even if the elections aren't over, the collations are about to begin, what would you score INEC's performance as we see it now?
Let me put it this way. If INEC was employed by me in the corporate sector, they wouldn't have a job.
Why is this?
So I know in terms of the IREV and transmitting results to the viewing portal, yes, they did that. From the polling units generally, beavers generally worked. But there is this problem. Somebody called it INEC's malaria problem.
Well, let's separate it. Transparency, you scored them what on transparency? INEC now with the IREV.
With the IREV, I don't want to call it. Is transmitting to IREV? Would you say it's transparency?
Good
Does
question.
that count as transparency? Really? I'm not sure.
I mean, because that was the purpose of it, isn't it? IREV, the purpose of IREV was to be more transparent in terms of results that can be seen.
More transparent and also to help people follow the results in real time. But I want to talk about, first of all, the process, the entire process from the beginning. This is an off-cycle election, right? So I expect you to even be at your best. Like there are no excuses, right? You've had more than enough time to plan, and your attention is not divided in other areas. So I expect that their planning should have been top-notch. A situation where materials are arriving late. I mean, I was watching the show early hours of yesterday, and I saw that in certain areas, people who were supposed to bring materials and some of the INEC staff were on their way from Edo State on the morning of. And so when you look at it, when you look at it...
Can I say something? Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you short. Sure. I think this logistic problem...
It's a malaria problem with INEC.
Yes, exactly. It's a malaria problem. And this idea of, the logistic itself is not within INEC control to handle. The government does not want to look at it independently. Whether off-cycle, whether general election, take for example the road between Benin from Eho to Auchi is terrible. Yes. During Jega's time, INEC, that was when INEC created rack centers, that by Thursdays materials should be at the rack centers. So it becomes easy. Apart from the rack centers, they also created the sub-centers before the polling unit, so that by Thursdays, non-sensitive materials will be in these places. And then on the morning of election, depending on the distance, latest maximum 7:30 materials will arrive there. Now the roads are bad, they are terrible. In some areas, they are not accessible.
Then there's the riverine reach as well.
Yes, they are riverine reach. Then there are no provisions for drone distribution like you have in Rwanda. And so, INEC will tell you they had to increase the budget for transportation. The budget is increased, but there is no concrete arrangement on how to manage the transport itself. When they go into arrangement with the National Union of Road Transport Workers, National Union of Road Transport Workers have their political leaning that you can't rule out. So depending on the political
as we saw in Lagos State,
they can sabotage your effort, and materials will not even get to a place that they should get to. So there is need as a body for INEC to sit down and look at logistics, whether general election or off-cycle elections. Okay, we need to have, who is that company that will be able to, that we can trust every election, that will be able to deploy vehicles for us to convey INEC ad hoc staffs. A situation where you see INEC staff with materials waiting for Okada.
National Road Transport Workers.
You know, so these are the challenges, when it comes to INEC and managing logistics. You know, so, and then if you go full blast, you say, let's go full blast technology. A situation where small boys are hacking bank apps, you know, and then not to talk of INEC that we did it.
You just took the word out of my mouth, because I was about to ask about e-voting. You just literally you preempted
even
this.
Apart from e-voting for the drones, what he said about the drones. I mean, even with medical supplies now,
yes.
I mean, in Nigeria they use drones. Like in Bayelsa State they use drones
what does that say?
to take consumables and things like that. So
what does it say for the present governance? What's that say?
So that's the thing. So I do agree with Liberus when he says,
I'm sorry, Judith.
the government also has, a part to play in this, because the infrastructure is not available. But I think we're working with the assumption that INEC is aware that there are more efficient ways to do this, and they have presented it to the government. We don't know that for a fact.
No, the INEC is aware that logistic. I can give you statistics from 1999 till date. That every election, one major problem that you always hear is logistic, distribution of materials. And then there's accident, there's both mishap. And then you see some resident electoral commissioner, like in 2015 general election in Katsina, the then resident electoral commissioners deployed trackers on the vehicles. He had the vehicles that he was going to use to distribute materials, test run 1 week before election, and they deployed trackers on all of them. And right in INEC office, you could see real-time the monitoring of their vehicles. You also saw the former resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom, Mike Igini, do the same thing. So, as a resident electoral commissioner, when you assume office, you do a tour of your local government offices. And so when you're also preparing for election, you do a tour. You know the state of the road. You also know the logistic challenges that you're going to face and how you're going to deploy them. So if you're increasing budget for fare on the ground that there's increase in transportation. So with transportation, so you understand the challenges, you understand the terrain. So that is why you are budgeting. You say, okay, before, if this vehicle is going to Auchi, before it was 2009, it's 4,000. So we increase budget. So the people that are going to go to Auchi, as at what time are they going to go? The police that are going to escort them, what time? You see some of them will sleep in primary schools. And some of them are not paid their allowances. So these are the challenges that INEC is aware of, they are consistently aware of. But for reasons best known to them, they just overlook them.
All right. So I have to ask you, given the logistical issues that we have just discussed, and given the late arrival of materials due to logistical issues, which is now causing voter apathy and in some cases disenfranchisement of the voters, it begs to ask the question, should we model our days of voting like the US and have an extended period of dating? Voting.
I do not think that...
So much on your mind, Judith.
I do not think that even the delays also, is much of a factor in terms of voter apathy than the attitude of politicians and what the benefit of governance. Some people will say, well, whether you vote or not, they already know who is going to win anyway, so what's my business? And I think the issue of voter apathy, we also first need to look at the numbers. I think our numbers have bloated.
Thank you, because there was a case of, I don't know who raised this issue. I think it was our last guest who said that there were more voters than those that were registered in particular units as uploaded on the IREV.
Yes, that's where you have overvoting, and those results automatically are cancelled by the rules. But that's not the one I'm talking about. Those are where you write results.
Right.
And so those people writing results cannot do the simple marks. But in cases where you have clear-cut numbers, go and check the statistics of all our elections. You've never had 45% total number of voters. Total number. They tell you PVC collected 85%, 90% PVC collected. But on the day of election, because everybody will have to travel to that state, somebody who is in Benin that does not have money to travel to Anegbete or to go to Uromi to vote will sit down in Benin and his vote is wasted. And in some cases, the roads are bad. You're like, no. What they won't give me when I go come on, go to vote?
It looks like a process will never be foolproof.
The process is very cumbersome. And then the rewards, at the end of the day, the politicians come, they behave the same way. So you just tell yourself, I beg, let those that want to vote go and vote. So some will go and say they're expecting money. And then you have the traditional politicians. That's on one side. And then secondly,
apologies, I have to quote you there, Mr. Liberos Oshoma, as we are about to head to Benin City, Edo, as collation has continued. The person you see there is the rec for Edo State. It just started. We're going to cut now to hear what the rec is saying.
Activity of program. It will be recalled that the commission on 26th day of September 2003 published timetable and program of activities. We have conducted all of them seamlessly, and today, by the grace of God, we shall do the last one, which is election and declaration of results. Let me advise you too that when the returning officer will be calling the results, please be patient. INEC will have promised you that we will conduct an election that is free, fair, credible, and all inclusive. We also promise the people of Edo that nothing will make us to fail them. The election has been conducted, and you will see, you will soon hear the result. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Returning officer, national commissioners present, our rec of Edo present, representative of...
And the views you're seeing there, that you just saw there, is from the Collation Center in Benin City there, where we have the rec and the other deputies there with him and security details as they're about to start the collation. We'll bring you more of those visuals, but we are here back in the studio to wrap up the conversation for this hour. Joining us in the studio is Mr. Liberos Oshoma. He's a legal practitioner and, of course, politician, political analyst. And also in the studio with us is Miss Dr. Owen Omojo, and she joins us here in the studio. We're going to wrap up this conversation very quickly because we need to bring the live feed. But as the collation is starting, right, and I want to geek out, all right, and I need you guys to join me in this, to geek out on this. As the elections are starting, we know that the stronghold, the collation is starting, we know that the stronghold is Edo State, which is basically the Benin Central, which is the urban area. And we know that from the last election cycle, It is the PDP stronghold, right? And there's also the APC, which is the north with Oshomo, the Benin North, where we have Oshomole's stronghold, Asako, and the rest, right? And there's also the interland.
Isako.
There we go. Isako. There's also the interlands, which is, you know, the riverine areas and all of that. And I seem to be more concerned about those areas when it comes to the results, right?
Deciding
Which areas?
The deciding votes.
deciding area will be Edo North.
Will be not Edo North.
The two major candidates are from the central.
Okay.
The major population is from the south.
The south, yes.
Where the three candidates will share votes.
Right. So that's what you think?
So, yes, they will share votes. The running mate of these two major candidates are also from the south.
Yeah.
So, Edo North is where the running mate of Labour is from. But he's, like I said, he's not a politician. And that's where you have a united front of politicians who are angry with Obaseki. So that is the place that APC is going to capitalize on to pull numbers from. Yeah. So whatever differences or whatever gap that PDP might give them from the south, they can use the north to cover it.
So I want to say something. So just think about KKK states, right? Yeah. During the presidential election.
Yes. Kano, Katsina, Kaduna.
Yeah. I mean, that's the deciding factor. In this situation as well, Edo North is going to be the deciding factor. So look out for those numbers. But those numbers are crazy coming from Edo North.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then lastly, for the interlands, those are in the riverine area, the more remote areas.
Yeah, you see, during the local government election in Delta State, during Oduaga's time, we're looking at the numbers, and then you see numbers from Warri South, for example, the riverine areas, and you see numbers from those areas are higher than numbers from Asaba. And then you now begin to wonder what's happening. What they do is, during registration, you ensure that you have enough people to register. So even though you don't use them, you wait for the day of election. On the day of election like this, areas where there is focus, few numbers can come from there, but where there are no focus, where it's difficult for the cameras to get to, logistics and the rest, that's where you now begin to see large numbers. So you ask yourself, where are these people in this small community? So, and that's what they all do across board. And that's why she talked about the KKKs. You go to Kano, for example, you say, oh, Kano, massive population. But you don't see adults, you see children.
Yeah.
On the day of election, they'll tell you they are all above 69.
We had reports of underage voting there as well.
And that's why they will never allow you to do a credible census, because when you do it, the credible census also will disprove these figures, these voting numbers that we have.
It's very interesting that Nigeria's problem is so peculiar to us that it begs to ask the question whether or not there's ever going to be a solution. And so, lastly, just to confirm, the North is the deciding factor to throw this election in favor of either the APC or the PDP. Labour Party should not even be this conversation again.
No, Labour Party just came to,
it's groundwork. It's groundwork.
It's a work in progress, and election is about money. It's about people.
Can we read our election system of that? Is there any chance that we can do that very quickly? Because I'm
the American election, you're hearing people donating $50 million.
Yeah, I was about to say that elections cost money all over the world.
Cost money. So,
all over the world.
Right.
So you're going to deploy materials. You're going to deploy men.
Scratch my farm, scratch your farm.
Yes, but unfortunate part in Nigeria here is that this money is used to settle you and I, people.
No, it's not me.
No, but the
when
thing
I say people,
it's not that it should be encouraged, but that's just the reality.
See, media, they do advert in the media.
True.
And that's you. They will hire lawyers at the end of the day.
That's you too.
Yes, INEC, the ordinary people. They will hire doctors and nurses, the ordinary everyday people. They're not
the hire doctors.
They do.
But I mean, I must say thank you. This has been quite the conversation. I must say thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Liberos Oshoma, for taking out the time this morning to join us. Legal practitioner and political analyst there, Mr. Liberos Oshoma, and also Dr. Owen Omojo. She's an indigent Edo engineer, and of course, this election. She's also, can you see, all the analysts we had today were mostly indigents from Edo State, and it's so so important to them to have their voices heard. And that's where we close the curtain on this part of our broadcast. But continue, we're going to pass the baton on to the next guest, next host to continue with the live coverage of the elections as Collation have now started in Benin City. But first, let's bring you the news, and Mizuno Appeal is on standby for the news at 12 noon. My name is Judith at TV. Bye for now.